of Trustees meeting July 23rd, 2019. Not hearing or seeing any requests to speak on any closed session items, so we will adjourn.
Oh, I actually have one.
You have a question? Okay.
Audrey couldn't make it.
Thank you. My name is Sheridan Rosenberg, and I'm actually just speaking about the employee review for Carrie Matsuoka. I'll keep it brief. I think that there has been far too much water over the dam, and it is my opinion that the Human Resources Department with John Becchio has been weaponized against people who have serious grievances, and I think it is in the best interest of the district to revisit his contract and not continue it, if not cancel it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to call us back to regular session. Now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Matsuoka.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. We have interpretation into Spanish. Buenas tardes. Tenemos interpretación al español por si alguien gusta escuchar la presentación en español. Gracias.
Thank you. And headsets for the hearing impaired are available. Please indicate if you should need one. I'll now make an announcement for action that was taken in closed session. The board voted in closed session 5-0 to approve a settlement for a classified employee in our district. The motion was made by Dr. Reed and seconded by Ms. Munoz. In the amount of $75,000. That amount was split three ways: $25,000 to the district, $25,000 for insurance, and $25,000 to Peabody School. Now we have the superintendent's report.
I want to welcome everybody back. For us, this feels like the start of a new school year. It was pointed out to me that we are 5 months away from 2020. I know, I see some heads shaking out there. How did we get there? That we are on the verge of the next decade. So this is the school year 2019-2020, and we are looking forward to it. I have two introductions to make to the school board. We're catching up on some management hires. And so first, I'd like to introduce Valerie Galindo, who's going to be an assistant principal at 2 elementary schools. Okay, let's see if I can get this right. Franklin and Roosevelt. I'm looking at Dr. Ramirez. Okay, good. And Valerie's a longstanding employee. She's been a teacher at La Cumbre Junior High for a long time, and so we welcome Miss Valerie Galindo.
Thank you for having me here tonight. It's such an honor to serve the students of Santa Barbara, their families, in this wonderful community. I began my journey in this district nearly 20 years ago in our after-school program, RAP. I just graduated from UCSB with a degree in history and was trying to decide what to do with my life. Not long after joining the RAP staff, I became an office assistant at the Santa Barbara Community Academy, and then an instructional assistant to an amazing kindergarten teacher. Throughout my 2 years as a classified employee, I served as a playground supervisor, health assistant, PE teaching assistant, and substitute teacher. It didn't take me long to realize I loved supporting students and their families, and I wanted to make a career in education. I traveled home to San Diego to earn my multiple subject teaching credential from San Diego State University, and quickly returned to Santa Barbara to begin teaching first grade. At the end of my first year of teaching, I met Joanne Keynes, the then principal of La Cumbre Junior High. She challenged me to try something new as a 7th grade English and history teacher. I have to admit, the idea of teaching junior high students was daunting, but I soon came to find out that there are many similarities between 1st and 7th graders. Under Joanne's leadership and the fire of a fabulous PLC, I spent 14 years dreaming big, working hard, and breaking down barriers for the students of the West Side. La Cumbre's culture transformed drastically from one of disengaged learners and frustrated teachers to that of connected scholars and empowered educators. I learned to be a fierce advocate for all students and their families, to challenge the status quo, and to always put students first in all that I do. This mindset has driven me to become a leader at La Cumbre, as a PLC lead, liaison, and SLT member. It is the same mindset that motivates me to seek new and challenging opportunities to make more of an impact in students' lives. And although I am sad to be leaving La Cumbre, it is with great anticipation and excitement that I look forward to serving as an assistant principal at both Roosevelt and Franklin Elementary Schools. Although the work of an assistant principal may be different than that of a teacher, the why of the work is still the same. Empower each and every stakeholder, student and family, classified and certificated, with the knowledge and sense of connection to participate in not only our local but global community. We live in a vibrant and passionate society. All students' voices need to be nurtured and heard. I believe each and every stakeholder in our community plays a role in growing this voice. It's with this mindset and dedication that I eagerly approach my role as assistant principal. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we want to welcome Kaylee Villasenor. And Kaylee is going to serve as an assistant principal at Santa Barbara High School. She'll probably share this one story. She is a Dawn. She comes from that school, and Kaylee's coming full circle, going back to the high school she attended. Kaylee's been a science teacher with us at Santa Barbara Junior High, and she's also been involved in our technology program. So let's welcome Kaylee Villasenor.
Good evening. I wanted to say thank you to each one of you for your warm welcome. I'm Kaylee Kilroy Villasenor, and I have been part of Santa Barbara Unified School District for the past 7 years. I've been a science educator for the past 7 years at Santa Barbara Junior High School, and absolutely loved working with the students and staff. But my eyes really became open when I had the opportunity to see all of our wonderful teachers and secondary schools in action when I became a technology coach for our district 2 years ago. Having the opportunity to interact with a variety of school sites allowed me to see how truly amazing Santa Barbara Unified is. I realized that my passion had evolved into assisting a broader scope of our student population through supporting our teachers. Teachers are always putting themselves behind others. They are constantly thinking of how to reach each and every one of their students by creating fun, enriching activities to further their social, emotional, and academic growth. Now it's my turn to ensure our teachers' needs are met and supported. John Dewey said, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. My goal is to facilitate learning environments for our students that foster innovation, promotes equity, and encourages collaboration amongst our students. I want to help create a positive change at Santa Barbara High that propels teaching to be different than it once was and prepares our students for life, learning, and work in the 21st century. I am looking forward to working with the teachers, staff, families, and students of Santa Barbara High School, a school that is very near and dear to my heart. Being a Don's alumni, I look forward to ensuring that each student's experience at Santa Barbara High is just as memorable and enriching as my experience. I hope to assist in creating an engaging, safe, rigorous, and enjoyable school environment for all of our students at Santa Barbara High. Thank you.
Concludes my comments.
Okay, next, are there any, let's see, we got that. So any board comments and or correspondence? Ms. Ford?
Thank you. Just a couple things. First of all, as an educator, I love the summer because it was always like an opportunity for me to get refreshed, renewed, and maybe just make some new goals and also just have some time for fun. But I also just wanted to point out that what I love about education too is that we provide a home and a place and a safe place for a lot of students for whom summer isn't the happiest time. Summer is a sad time. It's an isolated time. It's a time when some kids are disengaged in our community, and also as we know, some of them are hungry. And that's why I love our program so much that provides the meals for the kids throughout the summer. But in any case, I just wanted to give a heads up and my sincere gratitude to all of the district employees who are starting this year out and are providing so much more than just an instructional program to students, especially those ones I'm referring to for whom school is a home. And I also am so happy to say that I am now on the education committee of the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum. And I'm very excited because I'm a sailor, but also I just feel like the programs that they offer for our students are amazing. So I intend to be as helpful and productive in increasing and improving them all the time too. Thanks.
Ms. Capps?
Great, thanks. On that note, there is a summer meal concert on Thursday at Franklin, so we'll all be there with kids and music and amazing Santa Barbara Unified food. So Thursday, 12 to 1 at Franklin.
Dr. Reed?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge our cabinet and our superintendent, and excited for the new year and just for all the work that you have done and the potential work that you will be doing. But just, I think it's really important to acknowledge that we have a great team. And I appreciate the work that you do, and I look forward to a great new school year. Thank you.
Ms. Munoz?
I don't want to be repetitive, but I am looking forward to the coming months and the new school year, and have appreciated like my first little stint of being new on the board, and I'm ready to go back to work, and appreciate seeing everybody again, and all the efforts on our cabinet and our superintendent. Thank you.
And you just see this smile on my face because they just said it all and I don't have to say it again. So, but I'm so grateful for the time that we had off as a board, and sure, I hope you got a little bit of rest and coming back, and so that we're rested and rejuvenated for this year coming forward. We got some work to do and we're ready to do so. So I suggest you roll up your sleeves and let's get to it. Okay, that being said, public comments. Ms. Capps.
Great, we have a handful of public comment here. I'm going to start off with, I have to put my glasses on. Apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Atziri Mendoza, Atziri? Thanks. If I said it wrong and you want to say it again, that'd be great.
No, you said it good. Thank you.
Okay. So just to go over the way this works, you have 3 minutes, and then I'll give you a 30-second warning.
Okay,
Welcome.
thank you. Okay. Good evening, school board members. My name is Atziri Mendoza. I am a sophomore at Santa Barbara High. I'm currently working with CAUSE on looking at the use of glyphosate, more commonly known as Roundup. And I was wondering if we could get a time as to when the information about what changes you're going to make or what you're doing to prevent glyphosate use. Thank you.
And next we'll hear from Jose, either Rata or Pata. Raya. Sorry, I can't read your writing. Thanks, Jose. Welcome.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Josue. I am a 10th grader at Santa Barbara High School. I am currently working with CAUSE on how to prevent glyphosate, and I was looking at the University of California Integrated Pest Management website, and they already have a plan on how to prevent glyphosate use in their area. I was wondering if Santa Barbara Unified had a plan to also prevent glyphosate in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sarai Madrigal.
Good evening, school board members. My name's Sheree. I'm a 12th grader at Santa Barbara High School. I'm currently working with CAUSE on looking at the use of glyphosate, more commonly known as Roundup. The school sends out a list of chemicals being used on the campuses at the beginning of the year. On the website, however, that list can't be accessed.
my question is, can the list of chemicals be placed on the website for parents or students to view? Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 more speakers for public comment. Next, we're going to hear from Albert Oten. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Albert. I'm a co-founder of a local technology company and a father of 2 boys. I'm here because I've noticed lingering comments and bitterness about the relatively small budget allocation for just communities. As someone whose boys are ostensibly white and privileged, I worry that silence on this topic leads to the impression that I and my other white friends agree with the criticisms of just communities and that we agree with the narrative of reverse discrimination and reduction of opportunities for one group of children to benefit another. I don't, and neither do my white friends. The competition for opportunity is not about rich versus poor, English versus Spanish, or white versus people of color. It's about the proportion of Santa Barbara kids being educated to help us compete in a global environment. Every single software company in Santa Barbara is desperately scrapping for engineering talent. The shortage is not due to brown people taking the place of white people. The shortage is due to the lack of resources needed to broaden the pool of technical applicants that will allow us to compete on a global stage. I understand the anxiety of parents worrying about the futures of their children, but in no way will we be preparing our children for a future of work unless we advance and accelerate programs like Just Communities so our kids can thrive in a multicultural environment and benefit from a broader pool of smart peers that in future may even hire them. The gay kid sitting next to your kid, maybe the next Tim Cook, CEO of Apple. The Indian behind you, maybe the next Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. And the stupid, ADH, rattled kids to the left of you may very well be Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Air Music, or Charles Schwab. These people were lucky that the subtle and overt biases did not prevent them from success. And surely many of their friends and colleagues that supported them benefited personally and professionally. These people with different sexual orientation, color, religion, or learning disorders may be the most important contacts our kids, my white kids, will make for their careers. And while I empathize with the anxiety leading to parents worrying about the future of the children, the truth is we should be debating about whether Just Communities and programs like it are underfunded by 10x or 5x. One of my son's best experiences at DP was their team sand sculpture design project. Like other teenagers, my son isn't effusive in praise about anything, but he told us his engineering team was definitely the A team, and he loved that it was comprised, in her words, of a Jewish kid, an Ethiopian kid, and a white atheist. If he decides to interview with our company, after going to Cal Poly Engineering, he will find engineers born in the Ukraine, Russia, and Mexico. The parents of another US-born engineer is from Iran. Only 2 of our engineers are white and born in the US. And in case you thought it was white engineers creating opportunities for others, let me be clear that our CTO and co-founder was born in Mexico, and our other co-founder is of Iranian descent. It is they who have created opportunities for the 2 white male engineers, and it is they who continue to search far and wide for IQ points, drive, and creativity that exist in all kids, those of color, those that are white, everyone. So please continue to support those programs. Thank you for your support in doing that. I hope that the silence from some of us in the white community doesn't lead you to believe that we're against that program. We're for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you. And our last speaker from public comment is Luis Gomez.
Mr. Gomez will be offering his comment in Spanish, so I will be interpreting.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon,
mi nombre
everybody.
Es Luis Gómez.
My name is Luis Gomez.
Solo quiero hablar por las 2 experiencias que he tenido con la consejería de 2 pueblos.
I just want to share a couple of experiences that I've had with the counselors at Dos Pueblos.
La más importante, mi hija tiene servicios especiales, nunca le dieron
The most important one is that my daughter has special education services.
Ha fallado muchas clases.
So she had a 504 plan and she has not received services and she's missed a lot of classes.
Nunca le tomaron el plan porque el consejero no prestó atención.
They didn't put the plan into effect because the counselor didn't pay attention to that.
Es muy difícil contactarse con ellos.
And it's very difficult to get in contact with them.
Eso es lo más reciente.
So that's the most recent thing that has happened.
En el año atrás, Mi hija tuvo problemas psicológicos,
Last year, my daughter had a psychological problem,
nunca tuvo apoyo por la escuela
and she didn't receive support through the school.
y a final de cuentas me pusieron a echar servicios a mí.
And then at the end, I
A
had
lavarse las
to
manos.
help her with those services.
Del cual nunca me encontraron culpable.
So then I was blamed for something, but it was not determined that I was guilty of that.
So, mi hija necesita su ayuda.
So my daughter needs your help.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the consent agenda. Are there any items that the board members would like to pull? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So, we move next to our action agenda. Ms. Capps?
Yes, in the case number 201819-37, a motion is made to approve the expulsion with enforcement suspended through June 2020. Okay, I'll try that again. In the case number 201819-37, a motion is made to approve the stipulated expulsion with enforcement suspended through June 2020.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, our next item, acceptance of Measure Q 2010, Measure R 2010, and Measures I 2016 and J 2016, the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, annual reports for June. Mr. Tay.
Thank you very much, board members. Tonight, we do every year we do an annual update on our Measure Q, R, I, and J. We missed 2017-18, so Mr. Frank Stevens is here to present our annual report from the 4 measures. He's from the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. He's our president of our bond.
Thank you, Meg. Well, good evening. Madam President, board members, superintendent, district representatives, and the guests that are present. My name, as was said, is Frank Stevens. It is my privilege to chair and this evening represent the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Our report has been provided to the board prior to tonight's meeting. Therefore, with your busy agenda, my report will be somewhat brief. The members of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee have appreciated your district representatives for providing detailed and transparent reports, answering many, many questions, and for the forward thinking of how to fully adhere to the voice of the voters who approved the different bond issues. They have been most cooperative. Our report this evening is in 3 parts. First, Bond Measure R, passed in 2010. Second, Bond Measure Q, passed in 2010. These 2 bonds are largely coming to a close. This evening's report basically concludes the bonds R and J. Designated projects have been completed or are in the final phases of completion. The committee has been assured that any unused bond R or Q funds will be used fully adhering to the voters' wishes in approving those 2 bonds. Third is Bond Measure I and J, passed in 2016. The committee is monitoring various projects in progress. those approved, and those waiting approval. Site visitations have been used to become much more familiar with the various projects. Many challenges have been encountered along the way by district personnel. I will highlight two major challenges besides that of funding. First, Santa Barbara High School Stadium has encountered delays, thanks to Mother Nature, and unexpected pre-construction issues. It is time to complete this major project. There was hope the 2019 graduation could be held in the new stadium. It didn't happen. Where are we now? The committee did a site visit in June. There is work to be completed, and the present hope is for completion prior to the opening of school in September. This is still a major challenge. A community-wide celebration welcoming students, staff, parents, alumni, and the community at large will be planned to dedicate the new facility when it is completed. Second, we are in the beginning phases of major decisions regarding the newly acquired National Guard Armory. Stay tuned as planning, patience, but perseverance is executed towards maximizing the use of this new district facility. Finally, the committee faces challenges filling 3 vacant positions. We have 4 members as a quorum so we can conduct business, but efforts continue to fill the 3 vacancies. We meet 4 times a year for about an hour or 2 each time. Any help to obtain new members is greatly appreciated. Thank you for your patience, your understanding. Are there any questions?
Any questions, board members? Ms. Capps?
More of a comment, because you actually, I'm not surprised, Mr. Stevens, you've been doing this in such a wonderful way for so long. The 3 questions I had written down were to ask about the armory, ask about the stadium, and to say how is the committee's going, because I know it's a challenge to keep folks volunteering on this committee. So I'd love to try to help, and if I could get some more direction about which ones in particular might need the participation, I can certainly put the word out with some of my friends who are parents. I think that they would enjoy it. So thank you for your service. I know, having served on this committee for a bit, what it means, and it's not too much time, but it's really important. So thanks for doing it.
Thank you. Well, after retiring from the school district 25 years ago, I've tried to serve on many district committees. I've avoided taking any leadership role during that time because there were a lot of colleagues, there were a lot of administrators that were still on board, and I wanted to avoid any form of conflict of interest. Since I had been president of the Teachers Association for a few years, chaired the negotiations for 12 years, and the grievance committee for 12 years, we had some problems along the way. They've all retired, they moved on. I'm pleased that I'm still here. Anything else?
Dr. Reed?
I was going to say, and you still came back after the grievance committee, so thank you. But I just want to acknowledge the work that you do and the appreciation, and just to echo Ms. Capps's comment, any sort of guidance, but I would love to help support find people on the committee too. So whatever I can do to help, you know how to reach me.
Thank you, Jackie.
Sounds like that's it. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Wendy.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion to accept the measures, the report?
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving to next to item 3, approval of request for direct payment to San Luis Obispo County Education Office, Grizzly Challenge Charter School. Ms. Jate.
Thank you very much, board members. So a couple weeks ago, out of the blue, I got a bill for $132,000 without any previous knowledge that we had 39 kids attending Grizzly Charter School in the San Luis Obispo County. This charter is children enter at their own will. It's not some sort of expulsion or anything like that. They go on their own. It's led by the National Guard for like the boot camp part of it, and then the Grizzly School actually does the education part of it. So we got this bill, and so I'm asking for your permission to pay it since it is over $10,000. And also, you had no knowledge of this, as I did not either. I've had conversations with San Luis Obispo, and from now on, around January, February, they're going to notify us if we have any students there. So we won't be caught off guard. This is for 18-19.
Ms. Capps?
Thank you. You anticipated my question, just the out of the blue nature of it. And is that a function of the fact that we don't work as closely with San Luis Obispo, as I would imagine, than we do with other charter entities?
Well, usually they want their money on a monthly basis, so I was surprised that we didn't get that on a monthly basis, because on all other charters we pay on the 15th of the month, the in lieu of property taxes. I know the fiscal person at San Luis Obispo County, and after I received this bill, I just happened to be at a CBO North County breakfast, and Sheldon was there, and I said, "Sheldon, what?" You know, he goes, "Yeah, I heard that you already made several calls, and we won't do this to you again." I said, "I appreciate that, because, you know, it's $132,000 that we were not anticipating." So I don't think it will happen again, but I can't. I will call. I will be proactive.
Dr. Reed?
Yeah, so is it going to be, is it going to be a lump sum again, or is it going to be a monthly, or try to get it in line with the other charters?
Well, I have to pay this because this is for the entire year.
Right, I mean, potentially going forward, I guess.
Well, they told me that sometimes they don't have a clue when these kids come, because some kids come in and out. They also can be part of the independent study. So it's hard to tell. I will keep in touch. I plan to still continue to do those CBO breakfasts up in North County, and Sheldon does come to those. So I will constantly ask him every time I see him. Plus, I have the fiscal person at the county also that works beneath him, his email address, and so I will continue to anticipate. But they didn't ask for it on a monthly basis.
So then my question would be so do we have some type of agreement? Because can any charter that's there and our students go to, we don't know about it, can happen? So
it's a county-run charter. So whatever children go to a county-run charter, no matter where it is, that district pays for its own students. So it's the same with a SBE now, is that we pay for our own kids. So those are two separate kinds of charters. If it's our charters, we know who they are because they run through our system in Aries, and we know that which ones, but we have to pay for all of the kids that go to the charters for in lieu. But with a county run, you only pay for your own.
So is there a list of the kids?
Yes.
Because are they kids that would normally go in our district? Is
Yes.
why we're paying? So
Yes.
where's the list of?
It's right here.
Okay.
Oh, maybe you didn't
I
get
don't know
the
that I-
list. But you know, I have to tell you, the good thing about getting this list is there's another charter that we pay our in lieu of property taxes to that does not give us this information because they say it's against the rules. And so by the county of San Luis County giving us this information when the day that the kids arrive and the day that the kids leave is really good backup for us to say, and evidence to us that says it isn't against the rules to give us the names of these students. So that is working in our favor.
Well, yeah, it should be. If they can't give us a name, because they could put anybody on the list, and just because we're supposed to pay it, we would be doing that. So I would want to see that you know, especially if you don't have really control of it. You don't know who's coming in, but when they're asking for money, I want to know who they're asking for. And these students would be in that boundary.
And that's exactly why with this other charter, we have not paid our in lieu of property taxes, because they will not give us this information.
Appreciate that. Any additional question? Ms. Munoz?
Yes, and so I just want to be clear, will it be paid from the, the previous school year funds?
Yes, it will be attached to the in lieu of property taxes for 18-19. We have not closed our books, so this will be set up as an AP at the year end, so the costs will go for 18-19.
Thank you.
The cash will go out in 19-20, but the cost will be in 18-19.
So, Meg, since it's an unanticipated expense, do we have like a reserve or something, to keep us?
This is part of our property taxes.
Okay, so just knowing that it could potentially be affected by unknowns such as this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Ms. Ford?
Just to let my fellow board members know that this is a very big organization, and there are 3 of these academies throughout the state, and they serve, this particular Grizzly Academy serves like 13 counties. So it's an interesting challenge, I think, about the way that they bill us, but in terms of what they do, they're supported and are a big part of the National Guard. So I think it's just a learning curve for all of us.
Yeah, I
about
was
Grizzly.
quite shocked, and I didn't know who they were. And when I spoke to the people up at San Luis, I felt much better about it. And then I talked to Dr. Wagenek about it too. So I felt better about it. But it's still $132,000 that I didn't know about.
Yeah. Okay. So hearing no additional comments, may I have a motion to approve direct payment to San Luis Obispo County Education Office Grizzly Charter School?
So moved.
We're here second.
I second.
Ms. Munoz, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Chate.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll revisit this. Yes. Okay. Sandra, we want to amend the motion in the case of the student discipline. It actually should the case of 201819-38 as opposed to 37. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next we'll go to item 4, approval of new certificated job description, teacher home and hospital interim home instruction. Dr. Vecchio.
Thank you very much. Good evening, board members. I bring before you a job description. I'll give you a little bit of background. Currently, our district serves our students in home hospital and students on interim home instruction through our alternative ed program. We are currently serving those needs by hiring hourly employees. So mostly we pull from our sub list and we pay them hourly to serve the needs of those students. Once in a while, we do have teachers who are regular teachers in our district that will do that hourly work, but they also have their job at their site as well. What this job description is proposing is that we move to a 1.0 teaching position. You'll see the job description, and I want to point your attention mostly to some of the expectations that we're wanting to put into this job that will actually greatly enhance the services that we provide to those students. Having it be one employee will make it much easier for us to follow through on evaluating whether they're carrying out that position. It'll be more consistently delivered to the students within the program, but you'll see some of the complex things in the job description that we're asking of this teacher, and we don't believe that can happen with the current hourly program that we're serving. The last piece that I wanted to mention on this job description is that you'll notice the total was, I think it was $99,000. We are currently spending close to $80,000 in the hourly program. So it's a small increase, relatively speaking, to provide more consistent and better delivery of services to our students. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No questions? Ms. Capps?
Thank you. The merits of it sound convincing and a good position. I'm just curious about the timing and the ability to hire in the summer and what that might mean.
Dr. Dr. Wegnick, do you have?
Yes, it definitely is not the best time. And so in working with Ms. Berlin about this, we actually really looked at the numbers in about April. And going back to, this is something I actually wanted to do when I was principal of La Cuesta and Alta Vista and was overseeing this, was it was really hard to manage these independent individuals. And it was just because we got to it in April and it was Ms. Berlin's first year. And so really getting the numbers together and being able to see it. Then we had to write a job description, so we had to go out and research that. And that's why we're coming to you now with it. Ideally, it would have happened in the late winter. We can certainly start the year with the old model. We've been doing the old model for over a decade now, and then try to find the right person and hire.
So, thank you. So you don't anticipate any problems if an existing teacher were to take this job, what that cascade effect might have?
I do not anticipate that for this type of job, just because of the nature of it, that we're going to have someone who wants to leave a position in a school and take this. What I'm anticipating is that there are a few of the individuals who've been doing the hourly, who have shown that they have what it takes to do it, and we're going to reach out to them to apply, and that's who we anticipate filling it with. But of course, we'll interview the best candidates.
Ms. Ford.
My question is for Dr. Becchio. Do you have a sense right now for how many open teacher positions there are?
Yeah, I think we have about, I think we have 2 art positions in the elementary. We have roughly, I think maybe 2 teaching positions in the elementary. We still have a couple special ed openings. And so we're pretty close to fully staffed. We have a bunch of classified positions, though, to fill. So those are still open. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Becchio. Do I hear a motion to approve the new certificated job description for teacher, home, and hospital?
So moved.
Dr. Reed, second.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Snopes, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Becchio. You're up next as well.
Sure. So the next item is the classified management job description. This would be a new position, and I'll give you a little bit of background on this. We, in December, January, we hired a head custodian from one of our high schools to work on a special assignment to do a comprehensive needs assessment of the elementary space. And the reason for that was we had some serious concerns about our custodial work in that area, mainly equipment, use of equipment, and the toll it takes on our facilities and services to students. So we completed that needs assessment, and from that determined that there was a real significant need in the area of equipment and updating our equipment, training and proper use and methods for custodial work. And so from that, we have come to this place where we believe that having a management job in place that would supervise that custodial area, particularly in elementary, this is going to be for the whole district, but we think that the initial work there's a lot of work to do in the elementary space. So that was the initial reason for bringing this forward. In addition to that, we also, we have a pretty good system in place in the secondary. And if you think about it, we have custodial crews at those schools. We have lead custodians at night that lead their crews and oversee the work that happens at night. But we also have head custodians who are, really good and experienced and experts in their field, and they manage the entire crew. So that works pretty well. At the elementary, what we have is we generally have a head custodian at elementary school and one night person. And their schedules overlap by an hour usually, or an hour and a half, depending on the site. But that custodial crew is supervised by one administrator. By the way, at the secondary, usually, there's multiple administrators, so one of them oversees custodial as a supervisor as well. But so they have a principal that oversees them, but it's really managed by my department, our classified coordinator of classified, Brian Tangway, and that he just doesn't have the time to get out to the sites and supervise the work of the custodians and look into their equipment needs, etc. So we believe that this approach will greatly improve the services and the safety of use of equipment, the methods that are used in the elementary space. Happy to take any questions.
And before the board asks questions, I'm going to ask Ms. Jate, because I just want to highlight, she is literally walking every classroom in the district this summer, because the facility concerns that started coming, especially from our elementary schools, was so significant that she and Mr. Vizzolini and JJ, they are touring every school, and she shared some of her observations this morning. So just share the appropriate ones.
The appropriate ones.
Yeah.
Well, as Mr. Matsuoka said, we have almost gotten through the entire elementary school. We have Monroe and Santa Barbara Community Academy left. It's pretty sad. The bathrooms are pretty disgusting, and the amount of things that need to be fixed in the rooms, like light bulbs and the proper light bulbs in the lighting, which is a custodial situation or a job. And it's just overwhelming how poorly the bathrooms are done. Then you go into a place like Santa Barbara Junior High, who has an excellent team, and they're working four people in one room, just going one room after another, and you could eat off the floors. You could eat off the bathroom floors almost. So it's very obvious that there's a lack of, maybe it's time or knowledge about how to clean these bathrooms, and the classrooms especially. So I think the lead custodian, head custodian, custodian supervisor would be a huge asset to the elementary, not only to keep the facilities looking better, but also to help the principals and not have to manage these guys. They've got enough to do. And I just want to make it really clear that in the adopted budget, this position was in the budget already. So it's not an additional position. It's, I think that we will see a huge benefit for this position.
Ms. Capps?
That's great, thank you. I'm all for this position, and one aspect of it just came to light, which I need to share with Mr. Vizzolini directly, but Hillary Allen, who's the recycling educator for the city, is part of our sustainability committee, and she's just identified a challenge that trash is collected differently at each campus, and when there's a problem, she has to call each campus and try to figure out, and it often takes a long time, understandably, that custodians are out doing their job. And so anyway, I just wanted to flag that, and it was very timely because I just got this note from her recently, and I was going to share it with Mr. Vizzolini for some sort of solution, but she was asking, could there just be one person to coordinate with? So ideally, this would be that person, which would be helpful in terms of our trash collection and transition to composting and things like that.
Ms. Capps, I'd just like to mention also that, when it comes to recycling and that is heavily dependent on the custodial practices. And so, that's part of, it is part of one of the items in the job description, but it's really about, that's one of the practices that I think needs to be consistent across all of our schools. Pretty good at that in the secondary because we have like I said, we have the leads and the heads that can, help shape the methods that are used. But I think this will be one of the practices that needs to be looked at and then brought to consistency. So.
Well, you'll get no argument from me that that's a good thing to set from the beginning, and for that expectation that this is part of the job to, make sustainability a priority. So thanks.
Ms. Ford?
Thank you. And Dr. Bectio, I don't have it in front of me, so maybe it's already in here, but I'd just like to flag and emphasize the importance of also having a centralized approach to universal precautions, because I've been shocked by some of the ways that custodians handle waste in particular, and so I'm really hoping that this will be part of that person's responsibility also.
Yes, it will be.
Okay. Ms. Capps, you ready for
I do,
this
I
motion?
am.
All right, go ahead, girl.
Yeah. As I move to, let's see, the creation, let's see, approval of new classified management job description, custodial service manager.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gave y'all too long of a break. So, yeah. Okay, next we'll move to item 6.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vecchio. Request for adoption of 2 secondary textbooks for the International Baccalaureate Program at Dos Pueblos High. Ms. Carey.
Good evening, board members, and welcome to school year 1920. These are coming before you. I don't anticipate needing 10 minutes to discuss them, but as with all textbook adoptions, we seek your approval for these textbooks associated with 2 courses in our IB program. One of them is associated with an elective, a new elective course that you approved earlier. That's the film studies. I'm here for any questions you may have.
Are there any questions, Dr. Reed?
Yeah, so I was just curious, are these textbooks have, I mean, it's interesting to hear textbooks. So, I mean, are they have access to online materials within these books, or?
As appropriate, yes. So this is IB, as you know, is a program of study within the broader program of study at Dos Pueblos. Students can elect to take these IB courses in pursuit of the full IB diploma or as a standalone. At this point, virtually every textbook has a combination of online materials and traditional materials.
And these materials we have access to look at, I think. That's
Yes.
the process. And
So-
maybe you could explain that process. Please.
So whenever we bring materials forward for board approval, there's a period of time where they are on display or can be made available to the public. We usually have them available in the superintendent's office, so any interested member of the public can come preview these materials in that way.
Thank you.
Ms. Ford.
Dr. Carey, I'm wondering if these, if the teachers are already familiar with these books. This seems kind of late to be adopting new textbooks before the start of a school year.
So 2 things. One is the film studies course is a new course. So it's coming from a teacher who's very impassioned about having found this course, developing the course. So that is the one that is kind of more authentically late in the cycle compared to what we would normally see, but for that reason, that it's a new course that has all this, passion and momentum behind it. What happens with IB courses, like AP courses, is they go through course revisions. With AP, it's on the part of the College Board, and with IB, it's on the part of the International Baccalaureate Organization. So when there's a course revision, it's often accompanied by a new text acquisition. And that comes out of our teachers going to trainings that are affiliated with that subject that's being revised. So when we see a new textbook adoption for a long existing course like IB Spanish, it's generally because of a course revision.
Any additional comments? Okay, we are ready for a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Carey. Okay, for just a matter of process, we had some overlooked things that we did, so we're going to revisit our consent agenda. We do have some requests to speak, but prior to that, yeah, we had the request to speak on item D5. So you want to speak those before we pull it? That is an item that we're pulling.
Yeah, just in terms of process, we had emailed the board that we were going to pull that item and bring it back for your approval on August 13th. So we're glad to take public comment if there is such.
Yeah.
It's, so we have 3 public comment from consent items. Ms. Rosenberg, would you mind, I'm sorry, we're just getting to this now. Would you mind combining your public comments on the consent? Okay. So she had requested, and again, my error, I thought it was for discussion agenda. I just misread it. So it's items D5, D14, and D4. And are you
Okay.
3 minutes is okay for those three?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I'm brief. D4, I just wanted to call your attention that when I was drilling down on LCAP, I noticed that each and every LCAP document that I look at claims that we are at 100% in compliance of Williams, and we're not. I mean, we're just not. Which leads me to D5. So on April 11th, I filed a number of Williams complaints. I actually brought copies of them with me. And they covered a number of issues with photographs that were of great concern. Now, first of all, I'm thrilled to hear that Meg is doing a tour of the campuses, especially the restrooms. I mean, this was just inexcusable. And I think that, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But what I noticed is that I can actually just sort of list them. We started with the bathrooms at Santa Barbara High School. And after this, I'll go ahead and give these to you. But, you know, we're talking about years of missing toilets, years worth of years of, you know, their solution was just to kind of weld the door shut. It's obvious that the custodians weren't in the bathroom for weeks at a time, because my daughter documented a toilet that had broken filled with feces for about 4 weeks before we finally filed the Williams so that they could go ahead and fix it. And I'll go ahead and show these to you because I don't need to dwell on that right now. In addition to that, we addressed the intercom systems. Now, I know you're addressing that at Dos Pueblos, but at Santa Barbara High School, it's woefully deficient. I mean, it's actually pretty frightening. In some classrooms, you can't hear anything. In some, you can hear something that definitely needs to be addressed. The other issue are broken desks. I think those desks are from before when I was in school, and I'm 53. You know, one of her friends was sitting in it, and it actually collapsed underneath her while she was on it. Another one is just basic lack of supplies, especially in the art class, where a teacher is taking up collections like it's church. You know, $40 to buy art supplies. That's not her job. She shouldn't have to beg for art supplies. So I think that we should definitely address that. The heating and the air conditioning. Now, I understand that they're replacing the boiler, but in the meantime, there was like no heat for a year. Kids were bringing blankets to school. You know, and when it's hot, which we're going into these months, where it's, you know, sometimes 100 degrees in those classrooms, I think that, you know, the heating and cooling system needed to be addressed sooner. But what really disturbed me is when I looked at the agenda tonight, in particular, I see that what's on the agenda for the repair of the restrooms, the toilets and the sinks that were ripped out of the wall years ago. They're not scheduled to replace and repair them until the summer of 2020. I mean, that's just unacceptable. You have to fix it. So obviously, I'm running out of time. I guess the quick thing I wanted to mention about family services is it's another contract, $88,000. I know on June 11th, the board discussed creating policy where people who are from nonprofits would be made employees of the district, no more farming out work to nonprofits. This certainly, at the very least, should have gone out for an RFP with full review and competitive bidding. So thank you, and I'll go ahead and give you these Williams reports.
Thank you, and thanks for combining your comments. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we need, for a process, we want to, Sandra, what we'll do, the consent agenda included item 5. We will amend that to make sure that we're pulling item 5 to not be included in that, to be brought back in August. Okay? All right. Board members, so usually at the end of our action agenda, we take a break. I want to take a temperature of the board. What do you want to do a little bit ahead of time? Okay. What's the will of you guys? We have a conversation going on down there. So, are we want to go forward? Do we need a quick break? Anybody need a quick break, or we can keep moving? You can just do your own thing. Okay. We can take a quick 5-minute break. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to call us back to order. And we're going to start with our report and discussion agenda. Item number 1, the Tatum Land Lease Update. Mr. Matsuoka.
I'm going to ask Mr. Rouse to queue up a Google Map view of the Tatum property, just to make sure that the board is oriented with where this land is. Oh, very good. All right, so zoom in. That's about right. Okay. All right, everybody knows where the Vons is. All right, you see a Vons. So, and then the back end of that parking lot, right where the parking lot ends behind that CVS lettering, that road is a driveway into our property, and you can see it. And so one time last spring, I actually got out of my car and I walked the lower path, and I got to the edge of El Camino School, which is Goleta Union School District. And so our property, just double checking, goes from basically that pathway all the way up to the railroad tracks. I'm seeing heads nod. Good, I got that right. It's 22 acres. And you saw in the history, we have owned it for many, many, many decades. And it's sat pretty much unused. And it is an untapped resource, a financial resource. And so I know the district has had many conversations. We've attempted to develop this with the right partner. And so Craig Price and team have been engaged with this set of developers. And so we're excited to bring them before you now in a public setting for you to hear their presentation, the concept, for you to have a chance to ask questions. And so in the background narrative, Craig wrote a piece, I wrote a piece. We are advising a land lease, meaning that we're going to rent the land to these developers for, it seemed like 99 years based on one of the documents, which that's essentially more than a lifetime. None of us will be around when the lease ends. But there's a lot of reasons to hold on to the land, and you could see that in some of the financial arrangements. So I'm going to invite Tim Kim up to present a report, and he will go through the concept, and he's got team members from the two lead firms that we wrote about, and he'll do his presentation. And the most important thing is to give you a chance to ask questions. Okay, Mr. Kim.
Good evening. As Mr. Matsuoka said, I'm Tim Kim, and I'm here representing Red Tail Acquisitions and FPA Multifamily, and our larger family of companies that are all part of our company. And I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to come here tonight and kind of expand on what we're looking to do with the Tatum property and what we're proposing to do. We've got a few members of our company here, as well as RRM. And so thank you for that opportunity, and thank you especially for Mr. Matsuoka and for staff and council for all their investment and input into the process that we've been working on here for the last number of months. So RRM's been involved for many, many years, and in fact, I think they had brought this opportunity forward way back. And so we've been working with them closely to develop a plan that really maximizes revenue for the school district and that minimizes risk for the school district, and also one that has the highest probability to succeed in terms of entitling the property, developing the property, stabilizing the property, and generating that revenue. So we have this PowerPoint, and the intent on the PowerPoint, we've got lots of cool stuff, cool pictures, cool slides, renderings, all that kind of stuff. And I think you have a packet that has some qualifications and a proposal, and we've got all that in there. The intent of this PowerPoint is to go through that relatively quickly and not duplicate all of that and be available to answer questions. That said, happy to go back through any of those details and expand on it. So FPA Multifamily, we're part of a large family of companies, and we offer complete turnkey from the very beginning when we're acquiring properties and to entitling them, developing them, constructing them. We construct them under our construction arm, which is Redwood Construction. And then we have a leasing and property management arm, Trinity Property Consultants. So we handle everything from beginning to end. And at the end, we keep it and we manage it for long term. So through a few bullet points, but we're one of the largest in the country. We've done over $12 billion in transactions. We have the owner of the company is actually local and he loves this. This is like one of his favorite things to ask about. And so he's very vested in this region and loves to do stuff locally. We've got a couple projects in Goleta right now that we're working on. One we completed and leased up, which we now call Arrive at Los Carneros. And then we've got another one that's under construction, and we're getting close to finishing it. It's a podium deal, which is 88 units. And we've got a lot of local experience here with, the county and with Water District, with the State Water Board. And especially when you look at RRM and all their experience, it's I would say they're the top in the region. So we look at, there's experience and then there's experience. And from our end, we think one of the unique qualities about our firm is we do a tremendous number of ground leases. And they're pretty rare, actually. So for us to do as many as we've done, I think is really helpful in this situation because, we understand it. We're very comfortable with it. And in the end, you have to pay to build it, and you have to get a loan, a construction loan. And I'll talk more about that in a bit, but we've got some great relationships with banks that are used to working with us on this kind of thing. Here's a few of the properties that we've worked on that are ground leases. And the first one on the left is actually with the school district. It's the South Orange County Community College District, 400 units, regular market rate. And then I've got a couple others up here. So that's just kind of gives you an idea of a couple of the ones that we've done most recently. I mentioned a little bit about our family of companies. So, of course, you all are at the top. Redtail Acquisitions. And our Redtail entity handles a lot of the land transactions, land development, ground leases, and commercial. And then FPA Multifamily has owned some of the units we develop from scratch, some of them we buy, renovate, take old properties that are very old, tired, and we fix them up and make them really cool and fun and exciting again. So they've got about 120,000 multifamily units alone under their belt. And again, Redwood Construction handles the construction arm, and at any given time, they're working on 70 to 80 construction projects like the one we're talking about tonight across the country. And Trinity Property Consultants handles all the marketing and leasing for those properties. It's very efficient, an impressive group. RRM, we're probably working on, at least 10 projects with RRM, mostly in the state of California, and we've been very impressed. They've been a really key asset for us in the properties we're working on. And so for this project, they're the prime consultant doing planning, architecture, landscape architecture, and civil engineering. Won't run through all these, but a number of the representative projects that they've worked on. And with that, I'd like to bring up Tony to give you a little overview of the project itself.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tony Tomasello. I'm a senior land use planner with RRM Design Group. Just to give you a quick rundown of the project, it's a about 24 acre site. It's primarily zoned a high density residential zoning. The proposed project would include about 332 residential units, which is consistent with the county's zoning and general plan for this site. The project would include a mix of studios, 1s and 2 bedrooms, and as you can see from the unit mix on the right-hand side of this slide, there's really a good balance of studios, 1s and 2s. It was something that was important to us as we were developing these plans. It is a senior housing project. It would have a total of 388 parking spaces, and that's consistent with the county and state requirements for senior housing projects. It was also really important for us to have this be a really highly amenitized project, so we wanted to really focus on interconnected walkways and really nice pedestrian pathways, putting greens, swimming pools, community gardens, and other spaces for the future residents to congregate and enjoy. In terms of the site plan layout, as it was mentioned before, this is the existing road that's sort of adjacent to the Turnpike Shopping Center there. So the site would be accessed. We would continue that road and connect it to the other side adjacent to the school site. And then in terms of its orientation, we've really tried to focus development on the toward the center of the site. There's some really large and beautiful mature oak trees and vegetated areas around the site, so it was really important for us to maintain those as sort of buffers from the adjacent areas, and again concentrate the site toward the center. The residential units are oriented around the common spaces, so we have a community center here. It's about 5,000 square feet, swimming pool where there could be some activities for seniors that could be programmed there. Community garden spaces. We've anticipated a putting green, which we think would be a really nice feature of the site, and an adjacent clubhouse there. Other lawn activity areas and so forth. And then all of these areas are really connected via a network of pedestrian pathways that sort of circumnavigate the site and provide some really nice just outdoor walkways and places for people to circulate and go for a walk. There's also, lastly, an area that we've developed a concept for the memory care and assisted living component of the project. And we're happy to answer any questions about that as well. But with that, I think I'll turn it back to Kim, and thank you for your time.
I realize we're missing pickleball. Everybody seen pickleball?
Bocce ball.
Bocce ball.
Bocce ball.
I like that. Yeah, that's the big thing I'm hearing. I've done it quite a bit, and so we got to make sure we add that in there. Okay. Good. So now kind of go into some of the terms for the project. So our company is, of course, responsible for everything from front-end due diligence and all the technical studies that you do with that, through the design process, the entitlement process, through to getting permits, and of course construction and leasing. It's a 99-year term that begins once you get final approval. So we basically have a purchase option. Now we take it through and we get entitlements. That begins the actual lease term. The construction payments begin at the beginning of building permits. And what we wanted to do is, even though at the very beginning when we're starting construction, there is no revenue, we're providing $250,000 a year for those first 2 years during construction as compensation to the school district. Our base payments, we anticipate starting in year 3 as we're leasing up and stabilizing the property. The terms are 7% of the effective gross income. We also were asked to provide a floor, kind of this guaranteed bottom line floor. And so we've provided a floor of $700,000 a year. That's the starting number. And if you want to compare that with, does have a pointer? There we go. So here's this stabilized year. There's the 700,000 floor. Here's what we anticipate to be that first year for the 7%, and it's about 760,000. So what happens is you have those two, and those run parallel through the life of the lease, and the floor is growing at 2%, and the gross 7% lease payments are growing or shrinking at whatever the market does. So if at some point the market's shrinking, that floor is always there as a stabilizing effect to provide you that guarantee. And it could be that at some point that floor surpasses the 7%, in which case then you would receive that amount. So you can kind of see these two columns here where you're running those side by side. We anticipate that the market will, in this projection, outpace the floor, but you never know, of course. And again, you get the higher of the two numbers. So one of the, I think, important things and other attributes of the company is that we really have, I mentioned the $12 billion in transactions. We have a lot of great relationships for banking and to get our construction loan, but there's always that piece that's equity, and that can be pretty expensive, and that's where a lot of firms struggle. And we provide, in almost 100% of the cases, we're providing our own equity. And so, you know, the owner of the company is able to do that, and that's what he prefers to do. And so that kind of takes out that risk of, oh, I got to go find a partner to help, you know, with the equity on this project. So, and even just in the entitlement process, we're often spending, you know, $1 million or more, or sometimes several million, just getting through to being ready to pull permits. This is a pretty good sized project, so that number will be a pretty big number. And as I said, we do a lot of ground leases, and we've already had interest from lenders in supporting us on this project for the construction loan. Kind of some details on the funding and the ratios, loan to value, loan to cost, that kind of thing, pretty standard in the industry, and those are the assumptions that we made. And again, as you see below, I put that the owner's providing 100% of the equity for the project, most likely, and he's local residents. The senior care facility, we're asked to provide a little more input on that. So what we're doing is, most importantly, we're focused on the senior housing. That's really the anchor. That's generating the majority of the revenue. That's what we think is going to provide the most success for the project. So that's our top priority. But we're focused on the senior care facility too. So what we're doing is, in the very beginning, where we're doing the design and entitlement work and we do the zone change and everything, we are including the senior care, and we do a CUP, a conditional use permit, for that facility. We're doing that at the same time. So everything's being entitled at the same time. And then that facility, assuming there's some reason the county doesn't, won't allow us to do it, but we don't think that that'll be the case, that'll be built as soon as feasible. And so we've been talking a lot internally. We've been meeting with some senior care operators and getting interest from them, and we'll continue to work with them, over the term while we're doing the entitlements. But we're also looking at it, and we're getting some feedback that's kind of saying, hey, if we put those 332 units, or whatever the ultimate number is, in there first, and we kind of develop that pad, we're going to create a lot of value there. And then we bring them in, we would even be willing to build that facility and bring in an operator. And that might be the most lucrative way to pursue the senior care. So there's a 9.2 acre, there's two parcels here. The middle, where you saw the apartments, that is the main parcel. Flip back to that, there we go. So the main parcel, the 14 acres, is in the middle. Then it's a little odd, but the 9.2 acres is kind of all around the perimeter. And it's just the way it's set up. And that parcel really only is entitled for, or is zoned for, one unit. And so if we do a CUP, we can turn that one unit, like one residence, into one commercial building or senior care building. And so we need that, most of that 9 acres, for open space. You're required to do that. So don't mean to be too long-winded, but that maybe that ends up being an acre of the 9 acres, but the rest you need for open space and trails and that kind of thing. Tony talked about the concept there, and some of the supporting uses we would have is typical amenities, kitchen, dining room, that kind of thing. But in that case, again, we're allowed to do just one building. Last thing, timeline. So we're already in this phase 1, phase 2, we're already in the middle of that, these first 4 months, and we're doing kind of some front end, more due diligence work. We've already met with the county. We've talked through process. We've talked through, how everything looks. It's good. They like it. They're really supportive of it. And we would be working at the same time on the ground lease. Once we sign the ground lease, then it kicks in the entitlement phase in a little bigger way, but we're already going a little bit at risk on that. You get through the entitlements, of course, you roll into construction documents, and then construction itself, and then, of course, lease up.
Tim, can you comment about the question probably is in some people's minds, why a focus on senior housing? And can you tell us
Sure.
the age at which seniors qualify?
Excellent, absolutely. So, one of the great benefits to seniors, and there's a big need for it because there are not that many senior projects in this area, but seniors are a lower impact on the environment and local community, and projects every year are getting more and more difficult to get approved. And so I think staff and we felt that a seniors project would be a lot more viable to get approved with the local community. You generally have less trips. It's not as noisy of a development, if you will. It just has a lot better feel for this area. So,
Is it 55 and older?
I'm sorry, 55 and older. Yeah.
That seems kind of young.
I know. I qualify next year, so we'll see. Seems like it. But and part of the reason, you can set different ages, but it allows us to kind of appeal to a little broader base that way. It also, with seniors, you have typically less trips, less parking, so you don't have as big of a footprint on the development. So that's really a big help. And then we, as a seniors project, qualify for a density bonus. So it allows you to provide, some up to 20% additional units. And that provides more revenue, which is more revenue for the school district.
Okay. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Ford?
Thank you. You mentioned early on that this was a low risk kind of a project, and I think I have an idea why it's low risk, but could you be a little bit more explicit or give examples of high risk projects?
Yeah, let me clarify. What I said was we're providing a project to minimize the risk, and I appreciate the question. I should have expanded on that a little bit. What I'm saying here is we're trying to minimize your risk. And so we're doing that by being a capable company to come in here and do this so you're not wasting many more years. And then when we, for example, put a loan, we're not burdening the actual property. The loan is on the improvements, it's on the ground lease, but it's not putting debt on your property. And so that's key for a couple things. You don't have that risk of foreclosing on your property. You also have the ability to put a loan on the property because of the revenue that's being generated from the ground lease if you needed to take some money out in a lump sum way.
Other questions? Ms. Munoz?
Yes, I had a question about, in terms of the map of the project, where the parking is.
So let me point out, first of all, that this is it's a concept plan that RRM came up with, and they did a good job here. And this will change. That's one thing I can guarantee you. It will change a bunch because we'll be working through all the details and tweaks and trying to save oak trees and all that kind of stuff. It does look like there's no parking, huh? The parking, the roads are actually a little wider, and the parking is along a lot of these roads, and so that's why you don't see it. And we should probably get an exhibit that shows that a little better. But did you want to expand on that any?
What we've done is essentially is put the parking essentially on the perimeter of the site, and there would be 90-degree parallel, 90-degree parking along essentially all of the roads that are surrounding the site.
And, would there be parking next to the units for the seniors also, or is that not included?
So what we would probably anticipate, and I think this needs to be developed a little bit further, but we would have designated parking. So if you lived in this unit, you would probably have a space that is in a location that's in close proximity to that. So it's not necessarily a free-for-all, but you would have sort of a designated space or spaces that would be in close proximity.
I have a question. So, on affordability, we're talking about seniors. So, is it affordable for most seniors, some seniors? In terms of, we live in Santa Barbara, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good question. And so what our target is, and a lot of this is kind of cost driven and then of course market driven. So what can people afford? And if we put something out there that is not affordable, meaning they just can't afford it, I don't mean income restricted, but then we won't have anybody, renting there, right? So what we're doing is we're trying to provide a nice community with a lot of natural amenities plus some, a lot of ones that we're building, but not have it be luxury. This isn't a luxury project. This is kind of a midstream project that we're hoping will be, more affordable.
So that's something you keep an eye on, because not even luxury is expensive if in terms of that.
It is, and it's tough too for us because costs keep going up so
Yes.
much across the board. So, but I know that we are not trying to overdo it on the finishes and those costs that are maybe unnecessary.
And then one more question, just for my own edification. What is effective gross income? What does that really mean in layman's terms?
Okay, so you have gross income, but then, so you kind of think of, say you had 100 units, and you might think, oh, I'm getting $1,000 a unit times 100 units, that's how much I'm getting, 7% of that. But you have vacancies, you have people moving out, other people moving in. So, and then sometimes you'll have like allowances where you'll say, hey, we're doing an incentive to help lease this unit out. So all it does is it takes out those couple of items, which, of course, if it's vacant, you're not going to have revenue from it, right? And or if you're giving them, a credit of some sort. But in all intents and purposes, it's just 7% of the total revenue.
That you receive. Okay, thank you. Any additional comments or questions from the board? We're good. What are you looking for us to do, Mr. Matsuoka? Ms. Munoz?
I also have a question about the inclusivity, because I noticed that RRM does have, affordable housing units here in Santa Barbara and Goleta, and that's such a need, for our community that, in particular, memory care and assisted living, there's seniors and families from Santa Barbara and Goleta that are having to find placements outside of the county. LA, Fresno and so forth. So I'd be very much interested in, is there, any way that a percentage can be allocated for, our seniors from the community?
You're asking for a percent to be affordable of the units themselves, or are you talking about the senior care?
The senior care and the housing, the units. If
Probably
that's
a
at
little
all a possibility.
Probably a little early to know that, and that's some of the research we're doing on the senior care facility to kind of understand that better. And those kind of facilities, one of the reasons they're so expensive is because it's such a high level of care, and so the operational costs are really high. And in addition to construction, so we've been delving into that the last month or two. Have not even asked that, but we can certainly look into that. So
certainly there is where there's programs and insurance that will help cover that, and it certainly can give you some resources on that, but that is very much a concern, especially with both with memory care and assisted living in particular.
Mm-hmm. I know I hear the numbers and I'm like, oh my gosh, those are expensive for sure. Thank you.
Ms. Ford?
Another question from a senior. Seems like the seniors have the questions. I'm wondering if there's some sort of formula that you use to decide that there are 300 plus units and then just 20 assisted living spaces?
That's a good question. Yeah, the formula is how much land do we have? You see how many trees there are? So we're trying to figure out how do we fit parking and how do we fit everything in there without spending $1 million in tree mitigation and that kind of thing. But that will be partly site driven and partly demand driven. And we don't have a full understanding of what that demand is. This is assuming 40 rooms, basically. They could be
Right.
40 memory care, they could be 40 assisted living, some split in between. We've had groups say, we just want one level, one story, that's all we do is one story, and we want, 20 and 20. And then we have other groups that are like 2-story, 75,000 square feet, so they've got this other model. And so, with our entitlement process, that's what we'll be kind of nailing down. Hey, what can we do? What restrictions do we have? What level of interest is there? That kind of thing. But we would love to do more. And so if we can fit more in, absolutely. And if we can do it without having too big of an impact on everybody else, we'd love it.
Hearing no additional comments, Mr. Matsuoka.
Tim, can you scroll to the timeline slide? So he mentioned we're kind of in phase 1 and phase 2. This is an important report to you as the school board. What we're looking for is direction. Would you like us to continue down the development pathway with these two firms? Craig and I have spent a lot of time with them. Meg's been right in there looking at the finances. And so we feel really comfortable with this pair of firms. But we're looking now for your direction to continue down the process. Because when we start getting from, eventually we'll need to draft the proposed ground lease contract that's somewhere down the road. At some point, these firms are going to start incurring costs. And so they need a sense from us, school board, district, are we ready to commit? We're not asking for a formal decision today, but we are looking for, some direction, some clear signs that you are ready to give us permission to continue down the development pathway. So that's the question to you. It's not binding yet, but as we get into the next probably 6 months, we're probably going to be in a place where they're going to be looking for some kind of contractual decision from us. So that's the question to you.
Dr. Reed?
I think it's exciting that we're doing something, finally. So, in my opinion, I think this is the pathway. I appreciate all of the background information. We've been a part of the process along the way, and certainly from our legal counsel, Mr. Price, and also through Mr. Matsuoka. So I think it sounds like a real positive opportunity for our community. So I look forward to moving in that direction.
Any other comments, Ms. Capps?
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. I would just add, which I think is a sentiment of the board, I'm excited about the fact that this would be senior housing. The more low income and affordable, the better. The higher my excitement level would go up for this to go. And I know sounds like that's a stated goal of yours, but if that could be, I just want to be as clear as possible about that. Thanks.
Any additional comments? Ms. Ford?
Right, I would just say that it would be great if we could make some kind of commitment that a retired teacher could afford to live there. And so I see the need is great, and the revenue generation looks positive, so I'm in favor of it.
I agree with the sentiments as we go forward. Hopefully we get some of the questions answered that the board has posed tonight. Also, in terms of the state mandates for housing to house homeless, and it goes along with that, so I'm assuming that you're working with the county and cities in terms of that, how that fits that need at all, or?
Yeah, this is actually really good for the county housing element. And the county rezoned 2 properties, this one and one on the other side of the freeway. And we're working on both of those if we're approved by you to continue. But we'll be working on both, and we're doing, between the 3 projects, we've got seniors, we've got affordable, we've got workforce, and we've got market rate. So it's like we've got these sort of all 4 covered, which is really great. So I think it's for the region, it's really providing a big benefit. And all of this is multifamily, and that's what they need the most. And the more you do just by design, it's more affordable. So I think we're making pretty good progress there.
Okay. And then just one last question. So I haven't seen that property, but I have an idea of what it is. So aesthetic-wise, does it fit into, is it not going to be something so different from what the neighborhood currently is? Because there is a housing development to the south of it, to the north of it, I think.
So to the north, immediate north, we have the railroad tracks.
Right.
And then we
Okay.
have the freeway. And then to the, I mean, it's not probably true north, but, and then to the west, there's a school, but there's the big buffer of trees.
That's what I'm missing.
I guess we
Okay.
got a picture, might as well go to it.
Okay.
So here's, the railroad tracks and the freeway above that.
Mhm.
Then we have the school here, a nice big buffer, here. This is a nursery all along here. So there's no, incompatibility there. And this is multifamily up here.
Right.
So it, it feels pretty good, pretty compatible.
Okay. Ms. Munoz?
But question, and I'm sorry, the public road, is that pathway that goes through there?
Right.
Okay.
And that's one of the challenges. This project has plenty of challenges, and so I know we recognize that. It's pretty narrow right here, and so we're looking into what this right-of-way looks like. So you'd have 2 points of access, though, one here and then one on the other end. And those are, kind of off-site access, and then we have a really nice circulation system through the property. But we'll need to improve this access, of course, and widen this road along here. I mean, it's already shown how wide it'll be, but it's pretty narrow right now.
Right, yes, I mean, in terms of, I've walked it many times
Yeah.
with my dog
That's
and
pretty
so
cool,
forth.
yeah.
And also, in terms of what, I'm sure you have like a plan in terms of notifying the neighbors and so forth, in terms of transparency and input.
Right, so we are pretty intentional on our community outreach program, and RRM also has a great community outreach program, so we team with them. And what we like to do is get the plan refined enough, and have your blessing, make sure we're not doing something crazy that the county can't support, and then very early go do, a couple of those community meetings, get some input from them, and then incorporate, what we can, what makes sense from their input. The reality is a lot of times the input is, we really don't want anything, but if we have to have something, this is pretty cool. That's what we kind of shoot for,
Okay, thank you.
And I have one last question myself. So is there like a buffer between the railroad tracks and this property? Because I know when we were trying to look at childcare space, I know it's a little bit differently. It was the noise and the safety between the childcare center that we're looking to develop versus the nearness, if you will, to the railroad tracks. Is that part of this
Yeah.
property as well?
It's a pretty big setback, so obviously this facility is getting closer, but, if you look at these buildings down here, the railroad tracks are right here, and that's, we don't have a scale on here, I guess, but that's like at least a few hundred feet, and then you've got, the buffer of those trees, and so it's pretty good, pretty good sound attenuation.
Okay. Dr. Reed?
I was going to say, a train is a train is a train. I mean, you're going to hear it.
Yeah.
But I think I have friends who live near the train tracks, and you get used to it. But
Yeah,
are there
same
any
here.
pathways too that like walking pathways, or are they just in that-
There's some bootleg stuff right now, but that's one of the neat opportunities is for us to do it. We'll have a trail system internally, and then as we get an arborist and map out the locations of all the trees and everything, then we can do some kind of fun stuff with trails around, because that seems to be one of the most popular amenities is just a natural trail. So that'll be key
I think
component.
that
And-
would be really that,
yeah.
and maybe gardens.
Yeah. And I live by the train, and I thought it would be an issue, and I
Yeah, you
I
don't hear
literally
it
don't
anymore.
even hear it
Right.
anymore. Yeah, but, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so. Mr.
All
Matsui.
right, well, I've heard very strong verbal commitments from each school board member, so we will take that back to our next meeting. So thank you, team, for presenting, for traveling from long distances, and we look forward to bringing the next iteration to the school board sometime down the road. Thank you.
all.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move to our next report and discussion agenda item, the first reading of Board Policy Series 0400, Charter Schools and 3000 Business and Non-Instructional Operations. Ms. Jate.
Thank you, board members. So I'm bringing to you six board policies. 3 are charter, 1 budget, fees and charges, and transportation. I just want to tell you that the charter schools that we have gone over these board policies with our 3 classroom-based charters, and they're in we're all in agreement about this because some of the wording was kind of odd from CSBA, so we fixed that. And then the others are pretty much, there's not much change to them. The fees and charges is just that we prohibit any negative action against a student when they owe us for a library book or an iPad. And then the transportation just allows us to charge a fee if we have to, and that they give us permission to transport the children, which is not, it's not a big change on those. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions, board members? Yeah, she stepped out. She can ask it. At this point, there's none from this board. But if Ms. Capps comes back and has one, but we'll refer to that at that time.
Okay, so if she has no further questions, can I bring them back on consent the next board meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Board members, yes. Okay. Thank you. Next up is Dr. Vecchio. First reading of discussion of new board policy, BP 4119.26, non-fraternization policy.
Thank you very much. So I bring before you for the first reading this, which is a new board policy. I wanted to start by calling your attention to, we do have a board policy 4119.21, which is on professional standards. That board policy has an item in it, item number 4, which references inappropriate socialization or fraternization. What this board policy actually does is expands pretty significantly, adds some real clarity, some very specific items that our current board policy does not. So it takes that item and expands upon the fraternization and what that means. So this is a first reading. We will need to get your input. I will need to meet with the union and negotiate the potential effects of this policy with them. So that's our next step. And then I would bring it back to the board once again to review in case there were any changes that were made in the process. I wanted to call your attention, if you dig into the policy though, that the policy basically deals with 3 main issues. One is that it really clearly and specifically outlines what we mean by fraternization, inappropriate employee behaviors, and it gives examples of that. The second thing it does is it outlines the duty that our employees have to report if they do observe that there was inappropriate behaviors that fall in the context of this board policy. And then it also deals with prohibiting the retaliation towards anyone that is a reporting party of a possible infraction of one of these specific items. So that's the general gist. I know that you got a copy of it, and I wanted to get your input tonight on this board policy before I take it to meet with the union over.
Questions, board members? Ms. Ford.
Well, fellow board members, just to let you know that I made a couple suggestions, and I'm hoping that we'll change the name of it because I don't think people actually, unless you're my age, know what fraternization is. And then also, I just think that it would be great to add this issue around being around and where drugs and alcohol are being used. So I gave you a little wording on that.
Yeah, let me, one of the things I just kind of jumped into my mind is since I was referencing board policy 4119.21, we might adopt language from that item that I referenced, inappropriate socialization or fraternization policy. We could do that. It does expand upon that one item in that other board policy. So that's one idea to deal with the title. The other thing is, let me give the rest of the board what the recommendation was. You gave a suggestion on language around use of alcohol or drugs, and your recommendation was to prohibit the permitting and or being in the presence of alcohol or drug use by students. So that was the statement that was brought forward to add to this policy. It would likely be added in the second paragraph where it says providing alcohol or drugs to students, semicolon, permitting and or being in the presence of alcohol or drugs by drug use by students. So.
Ms. Capps?
Yeah, thank you. That was what I thought was missing as well, and it should be stated. I mean, all of these are should be common sense, right? But but it's important to state them, and I think that clarification is especially important to make sure that it's clear that teachers and staff should not be in the presence of students while they're using drugs or alcohol.
Dr. Reed?
Yeah, just how is this going to be shared with the staff?
This is one of the, we probably, I would say that it would be good to put in our, like if we have an employee handbook to give out, we would put that in there. But I see it as one of those items that I think should just be given to staff each year, just as a reminder. We'll have to talk about that as a cabinet, how we want to remind our staff of that. This seems like obvious, as you mentioned, but I think what it does is it actually expands upon what I said, which was the inappropriate socialization and fraternization, but gives specific examples so that our staff members clearly know what expectations are. They seem obvious, but it's good to have them in writing so that, our site leaders also can reference them. But I mean, I see it as something that can be a reminder to staff each year. So we'll have to figure out the logistics of that, though.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I just think the fact that we're making this something as, all our policies, but I think this one at the beginning of the school year, there's a really good timing to really reflect on potential practices in our district.
Ms. Pinos?
Yes, I also wondered about, implementing it with like volunteers and employees of contractors and agencies as to, how it could be implemented and I don't, by the agencies in particular and the folks that oversee the volunteers to make sure that it's communicated from the beginning and also to current employees of contractors and current volunteers.
Thank you. I will make note of that.
I have a question. So in the paragraph that starts with, even if a student participates willingly, can you expand on why that's there? Because they're students, so they shouldn't even be participating unless I'm misreading that, right?
Yeah, I think what they're referencing here is if a student is willingly engaging in text messages that are inappropriate, for example. And that doesn't mean that that's acceptable practice for our employee, even though the student is engaging in that willfully. Does that make sense?
It does now. It didn't, because I was like, at first, I misread it, obviously. I'm like, they're students, so therefore they shouldn't be. So, but I appreciate that point there. So the other thing you had mentioned, that you're going to be working with the unions on this. So what do you think would be the potential effects of that would present a challenge to this particular policy?
I'm not sure if off the top of my head I can think of specific examples, but what we'll do is we'll have our bargaining units look at the policy, and what they're going to be looking for is what they're going to look at this from the employee's perspective, and what will be the effective working conditions on any one of these items that might be in here. So for example, it's not in here, but if we were to put in there, you can't be around students when there's alcohol present or something like that. Let's say that was one of the items. They would probably bring forward a concern that we have functions and they might be at a house and there's, that kind of thing. So that would affect our employees negatively, and maybe they weren't really doing anything wrong. And so I think they're going to be looking at it through that lens, and they'll put forward examples of how these items may affect future working conditions, and that we do have to negotiate with our unions on. So I can't off the top of my head think of any examples to that, but I will certainly bring back information from those talks and discussions with the unions. Yes.
Ms. Ford?
My thought would be, having had something like this in my past, would be that there would be a lot of thought around training so that they could feel very comfortable with every staff member knowing and understanding what the new policy is. So I hope that's where they go with any concerns.
Ms. Capps?
Yeah, to echo that, I mean, if it sparks a good conversation, I think that's a positive thing, right? I mean, I can see, you know, sometimes you read this and it seems, like I said, common sense and judgment, but I understand with the way teachers communicate with students these days, it's much, I mean, back in my time, they had to actually call and it was much a bigger deal, and now it's texting potentially or emailing for sure. And so I just would hope that there's a spirit of, if this sparks a conversation and discussion, that's a positive thing to clarify some of these roles that need to be, you know, that are really serious at time of kids' lives, that there needs to be, you know, teachers and staff are authority figures, and that needs to be upheld.
Okay.
Just for clarification then, is there consensus around the addition of the recommendation from Ms. Ford around that language that I put forward? And also, I just wondered if we wanted to get some input on the title from the rest of the board.
I definitely support the inclusion of that clarification about being in the presence of students who are using alcohol and drugs. And then as for the title, I'm open to suggestions that maybe that's something you can work on further or put up for discussion.
So you're adding to the title, like, socialization into that non-fraternization policy. So you're saying, because Ms. Ford, you're saying that that's like old language that really doesn't apply, or?
Well, I noticed that nowhere in the policy is the word non-fraternization used.
Okay.
So it's just in the title and that's it. So I actually think there probably are a few suggestions. I'm happy to just chat with you about it if you want, or just think through it. But probably a more modern name exists out there. And it might just be as simple as saying inappropriate employee behavior.
Yeah.
Prevention? I don't know, something like that.
So
I will I'll work on a couple options and we can bring that back.
I think,
Dr. Reed?
yeah, I would agree, a more updated language usage. But also, when you come back, then that would be great to hear how the decision of how to roll this out, or what, what was the plan? Because to really call it, how do you plan to call attention to it, I guess, at the onset? Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is the first reading. Are you bringing it back for discussion again, or second reading, or?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back for a second reading.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll bring it back. We're not looking to bring it back on consent, obviously. I think we have some work to do on it. So
Right.
thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Vecchio. So the next one, you're part of a tag team here. Teacher induction program, first year report, Vecchio and Stern.
All right. Well, Roxana Stern is here. She's our coordinator of teacher induction program. We now have completed a year one of teacher induction within the Santa Barbara Unified. Roxana began the process of planning for just designing that program, working with the state on getting it approved, and has been in charge of running that program for this past year as its first year. And I do want to publicly commend her for her work. We clearly would not have this program, and I believe it's been effective this year. And we wouldn't have it if it wasn't for the hard work and dedication that she put forward on it. A lot of planning, and she's implementing it. And her report will give you a glimpse into what we're doing with TIP and Santa Barbara Unified.
Thank you.
Roxana?
Good evening, members of the board and cabinet. As Dr. Vecchio said, this is the conclusion of our first year of running our induction program, but I've actually served in this position for the past 3 years. We needed a couple of years to get the program written and approved by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. And I tried to put myself in your shoes in preparing this presentation and anticipate the questions that you might have since you have oversight over so many different programs, wanted to provide you some information about this so that you would know about this tiny corner but very important work that we're doing in our school district. So in anticipation of that, I figured some of you are wondering, what is induction? And of course, the question, why are we doing this? How does it impact our district, and what does it look like for our teachers and for our students? So again, by way of background, induction is something that exists in the entire state of California. It is a 2-year program by design by the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and it's required of all newly credentialed teachers in their first few years of their careers. We launched our program this past fall of 2018, and we graduated our first cohort in June of 2019, which may bring the question, if it's a 2-year program, how did we manage to graduate our first cohort already? We had previously contracted with Santa Barbara County Education Office to provide those services to our teachers. That was at the cost of $2,500 per teacher per year. So again, with a 2-year program, it's a big financial investment that we were making. Our program is currently in provisional approval status with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, and in order to gain full approval, we will have a site visit from the Commission in 2020. Likely, I anticipate that will be in the fall of 2020. The Commission would like to allow enough time for an entire cohort that began the program with us as first-year candidates in 2018 to have gone through the 2 years of the program. Why are we doing this instead of continuing to contract with the County Education Office? As an organization, we are always reflecting on the work that we're doing and how we can improve that work. And in human resources, that is, how can we not only attract but also retain quality teachers to serve our students for a lengthy period of time? Having our own induction program really shows prospective teachers that we are investing in our employees. We're bringing this under our roof, and we're providing it to them, and we're also not charging them, which many teachers in California have difficulty when they are newly hired in a district to find an induction program, and then they find themselves having to pay for it out of pocket. And I should be clear, we were paying for our candidates to receive this from the County Education Office, but when we provide it under our own roof, we really show that we're invested and we're committed to doing something for our candidates. The third point there indicates that we can nimbly provide relevant professional development. Every year, as we look at our student data, what our students are achieving and what they need, that drives the professional learning that our district provides. And we can update our induction program not only annually, but throughout the year so that it works hand in glove with the work done in the Education Services Department as well. And we can also work to create a schedule of an induction program that avoids high-stakes events for teachers. We don't have any conflicts with back to school night. We don't have any conflicts with parent-teacher conferences, with minimum days. So our teachers are able to do the vital work of our district and support students and support parents, and also work on their own professional growth. We actively involve all of our stakeholders. Our advisory board for induction has beginning teachers on it, it has mentors on it, and it has site leaders from all the schools, as well as our higher education partners that we have here in the community. So that is a strength too, that we have our teachers telling us what's working in the program and what needs to be changed and adjusted. To give you a sense of the scope of what this program has looked like in its first year and is shaping up to look like in its second year, you can see the numbers are relatively steady. As Dr. Becchio had indicated earlier this evening, we still have some positions open with our district, and you just approved some new hires on the consent calendar today. So we will be likely adding some more participants. Most of them will probably be first-year candidates, but we do sometimes hire people who are coming to us from another district and they've completed another year of induction somewhere else. And we're easily able to integrate those folks into our program. We simply get a letter of completion from their prior district. We have candidates in induction serving every level of students in our district, from preschool all the way to age 22. We have one teacher from Franklin Preschool and one from Harding Preschool. We have 25 teachers throughout the elementary district, and the two largest cohorts are from Washington School with 5 teachers and Franklin School with 4 teachers. And in our secondary district, we currently have 44 teachers. And those numbers are also reflective of our student population. Approximately a third of our students are in the elementary and about 2/3 are in the secondary. So our teachers whom we are serving numerically are very similar to the student ratios that we have. We also have one teacher who is serving students who are ages 18 to 22, which is our adult special education program. And to give you an idea of what our candidates experience when they are participating in the program, they have a kickoff day, two kickoff days if they are first-year candidates, one kickoff day if they are a returning candidate, so they can spend time focusing on their own professional learning before the start of the school year. And I apologize, I think I skipped a slide. No, I did not. I'm going to continue on to this one. So our candidates are able to spend a day focusing on the work that they are going to be doing. And that centers on creating an individual learning plan, which is really the blueprint for their professional growth in the coming school year. And their professional growth has to be framed by the California Standards for the Teaching Profession. So they have the gift of a day to focus on themselves, set goals for themselves, and where they realize they need to grow on those California Standards for the Teaching Profession. Then throughout the year, they receive mentoring every week from an experienced colleague who is usually at their school site and in their grade level or their content area. And they can continue to go through a cycle of inquiry on that individual learning plan. Plus, they get help from their mentor on the types of things that come up in the day-to-day life of a teacher, situations that are perhaps novel to a first or second year teacher when they don't know how to appropriately respond to a parent email or deal with a management situation that has come up in their classrooms. They've got their mentor right there by their side. They can walk across the hall to that person, send them a text message however they'd like. And our candidates also get to meet every month with a cohort with fellow first and second year teachers from throughout the district. So we're building professional networks, not just on school sites, but throughout the district. So the teacher at Washington can talk to the teacher at Roosevelt or talk to the teacher at Franklin. What's working in your kindergarten classroom? I'm having a challenge in my kindergarten classroom. Can you help me? And when our teachers move around from school site to school site in our district, they don't feel so much like a fish out of water because there's a familiar face on another campus, somebody they've interacted with professionally before. Our mentors also get to spend a day preparing for the school year and in our induction program preparing for their candidates before the start of school. As you already heard, they are providing that support on the individual learning plan and what the commission likes to call just-in-time support. A situation is happening now and it needs to be handled in 24 hours. How do I get some help on that right away? Our mentors meet a little less frequently. They meet quarterly, and 2 of those meetings they attend together with their candidates in order to complete the work of induction. What we are hearing from our teachers is that they really appreciate and value the Santa Barbara Unified program because of how it is able to work so closely with the work that they are doing in other aspects of their professional life. They are able to have a personalized learning plan that they can adjust throughout the year. If they find that there's something that's come up that they hadn't anticipated in August, they have the flexibility to adjust that and access the resources right here. Our anticipated cost savings for Santa Barbara Unified is approximately $40,000 a year by bringing this under our own roof. So I thought that might be some good news to close with, but I of course welcome any questions you might have.
Board members, any questions? Dr. Reed?
Yeah, I think this is really exciting, and thank you for all your hard work. And I know you have a great attention to detail, and you have to, working with the CTC. What I was curious about is how are the mentors chosen? And is there a certain time frame that a teacher can become a mentor? Is there a training for mentors? If you could just speak to that a little bit.
Thank you. The process for choosing mentors, there are guidelines that we receive from the Commission on Teacher Credentialing. So a mentor needs to have at least 3 years of teaching experience prior to being eligible to be a mentor. That way they have some experience that they can draw on before they are supporting somebody else. Our process is as soon as somebody is hired in our district, we reach out to the site leader where they will be placed and let that site leader know you've got a new teacher coming on board, and based on the grade level that you anticipate that person teaching, would you please identify a mentor from your site who can work with that person? And that way the site leader knows all the moving parts that are happening at their school, what the responsibilities are of the teacher, and they also know the personalities of their staff. Who would be a good match professionally, logistically, and on a personal level with that candidate? We are required to make the mentor matches within 30 days of our teachers being hired, and I'm happy to say we've been able to do that every time. We had our first new hires in April, and we had most of our mentor matches made before the school year was over. So our teachers leaving for summer knew, yes, I'm going to be mentoring somebody next year, and our new hires knew, yes, I'm going to have a mentor. That being said, I got an email today that a teacher moved, so I will be reaching out to the new principal tomorrow saying, you've got somebody new at your site, we need to find a mentor. So that work is ongoing.
Great, yeah. And the research saying the retention of teachers is so clear with these types of mentor programs. So it's great to have something like that in-house. Are the mentors provided with stipends?
Yes, the mentors are provided with stipends, and that's actually something that existed before we took the program on, and it is a practice that we are continuing. They're spending an hour every week with candidates, and we need to recognize that time and that expertise that they're investing.
Excellent, thank you.
Any additional questions, Ms. Ford?
Thanks. This sounds like a great program, and you mentioned recruitment, and I think that a great induction program has a significant impact on your ability to recruit. So what do you do? What are you thinking about doing? I know you're still new, but did you do anything this summer in the area of recruiting, promoting the TIP program?
Our promotion has been subtle up to this point. It is something that we do have on our district website, and when we have candidates looking at our district, that is a feature that is prominently in our human resources area of our website, that candidates will have access to an induction program. When people are looking at our district, that is one of the questions that's frequently asked of our now Human Resources Director, Ann Peak. Is there an induction program? How do I access that? And as we go out and we spread the word about Santa Barbara Unified, and we have booths at recruiting fairs, we have materials about our induction program that we provide. So in the areas where we're doing actual face-to-face recruiting, we're providing that. And I'm interested also in working with the California Centers for Teaching Careers to advertise our induction program as well. And that's an area of growth for us for the future.
Any additional questions or comments? Ms. Munoz?
Yeah, no, impressive. You know, it's very well thought out and thorough. I think it's great in terms of retaining and attracting teachers to our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just have a comment, aside from the $40,000 savings, which always lights my lights up. So, but the fact that it is in-house and you're training within that culture, either you're going to stay, that either your retention to that way, you're carrying, you get to see it, whether you're transferring within the district, it's there within the culture. So I appreciate that. And I also would just appreciate your knowledge and background and just your enthusiasm about it. You truly anticipated every question we could have had, and you were ready for any ones that you didn't anticipate. So I want to thank you for that. So are there any additional comments or questions? All right. Dr. Reed.
Just that, are the teachers who go through the induction program can, just to let you know, that there's opportunities in higher ed, and certainly in Antioch, for mentoring, for utilizing those professional development hours towards a master's degree. So they could be earning, and I think that might be something to think about, because as they do this work, they could also be elevating their own income if they augment their own professional higher education.
Yes, and one thing that I neglected to mention is that we have a partnership with UCSB Extension, so our candidates and our mentors are able to earn units for professional growth. Most of our new hires do tend to come from UCSB, and they typically are leaving there with a master's degree, but we do have people who come from other credentialing programs, and they may not already have a master's degree, or they may be looking at their placement on the salary schedule and wanting to move from one level to the next. So they have opportunities to earn that with us. And of course, we are always interested in letting our candidates know about our partnerships with Antioch and with other higher education entities. So we would be happy to share that news.
Before we leave this item, I just want to acknowledge thanks to Ms. Roxana Stern. Let me go back 3 years when this idea was hatched. It was an idea, and so Roxana owned it. And at the time, the assistant superintendent of HR was Mitch Tarina. So then my second year, when Mitch did early retirement in November, Roxana and I kind of met and looked at each other, and I said, well, you go, girl. And boy, I tell you, she had complete knowledge and ownership of this. I mean, she was the one that was driving up to Sacramento, you know, just going in front of CTC, who I can imagine is not the easiest body to work with. So I'm just really proud of you. You know,
Thank you.
I mean, to bring this all the way to fruition and to see the first results, just great work. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And it's truly where my heart is. I think about where induction was or support for new teachers when I started in 1995, and I always wanted to be able to do better by the people who came after me than our district was able to do at that time and the state was able to do at that time. So this it has a lot of personal meaning for me too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Wagnet, Elementary Mental Health 2018-19 report.
All right. Good evening, Board. I'm very pleased to bring this report to you tonight. Thank you, Brian. So, bringing to you a school-based mental health report, elementary. There will be a secondary report coming in the future. But bringing this to you as promised, when we set out and the board approved the RFP back in January of 2018, I'll just say that what I envisioned for mental health services for our preschool through grade 6 students is coming to fruition. But that's not all I have to share. I'll share more. But I will say that the collaboration with Calm, it has exceeded what I dreamt of at that time. So just real briefly in terms of, to give you an idea of the description of services, one thing that was really a focus when we put out the RFP was that we were looking for a collaborating partner who would serve the whole school. And in Calm, we have that. Calm has a three-pronged approach wherein, you know, sometimes in school-based mental health models, you have primarily it's individual one-on-one counseling and group counseling. But instead with Calm, we have this whole school approach. And so in terms of the three-pronged, we have universal tier 1 services. There are targeted interventions for groups of students or individuals. And then there are also more intensive services. The other thing that I wanted to point out regarding Calm services is the continuity of care. Once a student completes services, it's not enough to say you're fixed and move on, but rather really Calm's committed to doing warm handoffs when needed. They're running summer programs, and we have Executive Director Elena Walzak and Program Director Jen Mundy there in the back, and they'll be available for questions. But really doing summer programs and groups for students who need continuing services, doing transitions to the junior high school, et cetera, et cetera. There is, of course, individual therapy and skills groups that are run. In total, 218 students received either individual therapy or skills groups this year. And the skills groups, another benefit of the services that Calm brings to our 9 elementary schools, is that no two schools have exactly the same model. And when they went in late last August and started working in the schools, the idea was to do a needs assessment right off the bat to determine what the needs were of each school. And that is definitely what we've seen. So those skills groups are dependent on what is needed in the school. Calm offers what I call a concierge menu of services. So everything ranging from the greatest number of instances of service this year went to crisis management and support services. Outreach to parents, 659 instances. But they also attend SSTs, provide classroom skills lessons, offer compassion centers. We had some really traumatic experiences that happened at the end of the year, and those anecdotally, having Calm available to, without even being asked, really just step up and take over that piece is huge when a school is going through trauma, as both Adams Elementary and Monroe and Franklin experienced at the end of the school year. They also do prevention presentations on topics such as body safety and bullying. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the summer skills groups. The other piece that I do want to address is the services that Calm provides to school staff. So a big thing in elementary school is students who are what I like to call dysregulated. They're not able to regulate their emotions. And so really that emotional regulation is a common consulting topic. Social emotional environments, attachment, and then again, trauma and grief. So the budget to provide the services to the 9 elementary schools is $876,000. Santa Barbara Unified's contribution last year was $375,000. That came out of both the general fund, Title I, and the LCAP. I would be completely remiss if I didn't quickly share with you the hard work that went into, in really a very short period of time, from early June to mid-August, of funding the gap, funding that $500,000 gap. And so I specifically wanted to mention the local philanthropists who stepped up and helped out and willingly. I don't want to say it came easily, because we had to meet with a lot of folks. But when we were able to share the story of the why and the what, we have a very generous community, and we're very thankful. Now, when I get to the recommendations, we'll talk about what we need to do in the long run, but they are there with us as we get this launched right now, and so I did really want to make a point of that. So the board agreed last year that because of the need to fund the program, that we would forego a third-party evaluation in the first year, but we did do an internal evaluation. Calm probably has the most robust evaluation program of any of the community-based organizations that I've worked with, the ability to do that evaluation. And so I'll speak briefly about that. We looked at, in terms of our student outcomes, strengths development was the first one. And so we had 351 students in the district who were screened at 3 points in the school year. And what we saw was the number of students who showed strengths in social emotional strengths nearly doubled from the first measurement to the second measurement. And it's important to note that these students who were identified for the screening by their teachers. The teachers were the ones who actually responded to the questions. They were students who had behavioral and or social emotional concerns in the classroom. You know, the students who are really struggling with that. And we know that students who struggle in those ways definitely struggle to access their academics. And so we did see that result. We also saw that in terms of the referral process, students who were chronically absent were referred students who received mental health services and were referred had a chronic absenteeism rate of 15.5% in contrast to non-referred at 8.9%. So almost double the rate of chronic absenteeism, and then almost 10 times the rate of suspensions, the students who were referred. And so what that tells us as we look at that is that we are appropriately referring students. These are students who are behaviorally in need. We also looked at the academic piece because we do know, again, that students who are struggling with social emotional learning, behaviorally, and with mental wellness have trouble accessing their academics. And so we did see that students who were referred had lower scores on their STAR math, their STAR reading, and their early literacy. We also, again, this is a whole school approach, and teachers who are not doing well or who are struggling, who are stressed out, that cascades down to students. The hope is that by providing these services that teachers will, in the long run, report lower levels of stress. But what we found in the inventory of teacher stress was that there were elevated scores throughout the year. They did not decrease this year, but there were elevated scores in the area of sense of competence, need for support, and overall teacher stress. We did not find clinical levels of concern, but there were elevated scores in those areas. And we also included in the internal program evaluation, we asked the elementary principals to provide us with an evaluative statement if they chose to. I do want to, for the record, we received 4 responses back. I do want to read one for the record from Kelly Fresh, the principal at Adams Elementary School, who said that the level of support the Adams team of CALM counselors offered to students, staff, and parents was amazing. They became a part of our school community, sharing in our successes and stressors. From individual and group counseling for students to teacher, staff, mental health support via weekly bulletin, wellness meetings, and consultation services for behaviorally challenging students, they positively impacted the lives of so many on our campus. We are thankful for the partnership. And to me, the principal evaluative statements are probably the most valuable at this point in the year if the principals feel that the program is of value to them. It's of value to all of us. So moving on, in terms of the recommendations, we do want to focus on a reduction of teacher stress and an increase in their personal sense of competency. So we'll be doubling down on those efforts, both through a new district initiative, but also CALM will be doing that work as well. We want to work on this increased acceptance of what's sometimes referred to as the open door classrooms, that teachers really have an open door, meaning metaphorically that the CALM counselors are welcome to come in and consult with them in order to lessen some of this stress and help them work with behaviorally challenged students. That goes along with a full integration of CALM services into all of our systems of integration, and we're going to be having a presentation on the multi-tiered systems of support in just a moment, so having CALM services be a vital part of those interventions. We do need to identify a long-term sustainable funding sources for the work, and then finally engaging in a third-party evaluation, which we will be doing next year. So at that point, I'll open it up for questions, and I'll invite our partners to come on up. Questions from the board?
Any questions? Dr. Reed?
I just want to acknowledge this team and the leadership of Dr. Wagenknecht, because you started the whole launch towards this mental health framework and what we needed to do. And from there to where we are, it's really powerful. I mean, reading through all of this was just, it just made me feel so good for our students and our teachers. I just, that this is what we needed to do, and how you were able to nimbly do it and do it in such a robust way is just really a credit to the work that you do and for our district. And so I also want to acknowledge the evaluative measures that you put into place, and that it was a process and very intentional in how you were going to move forward with this and really ensure that the work that was being done was being done in the most effective and efficient way. So I'm just here to be a cheerleader and to thank you. And I know you, Alana, too. You do. I mean, you're constantly running around. You don't have time for yourself. And the efforts that you put forward and that you do for our community are very commendable. So thank you.
Ms. Capps?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, along those lines, I don't have any questions, because I think that you've done a great job of keeping us apprised as this has moved forward. So that's another compliment I want to give to the program. I feel like we've understood it. We understood how bold it was at the beginning and the price tag and how we're going to get there, but all along. And then I had the benefit of volunteering in my son's classroom when a calm person was there doing a little study, so it was just neat to see it in practice. So I'm just so supportive of this kind of services for our children. I wish we could double, triple, et cetera. I think it's just vital to their success, and so it's nice to have this report. Again, I feel like you've done a great job of keeping us apprised, and I especially appreciated the anecdotes of the principals that brought it to life. So thank you for that, and thanks for all the work.
Ms. Ford?
Seems really great. I was wondering if, just for the record, if you could describe the requirements of being a CALM employee that goes into schools, because I think we have members of our community that want to make sure that every person that steps foot on a campus is a safe person. So could you just describe it, please?
Sure. So when we're looking for a therapist that's going to work in schools, we're looking for all of the things that we would want in a therapist that's working in a clinic. They need to obviously pass a background check, and they have to have proper vaccines and all of that kind of thing that anybody working in a school has to have. In addition to that, we're looking for something beyond just clinical skills. We're looking for somebody that's able to collaborate with teachers, with principals, that's able to tolerate a tremendous amount of distress as they're working in really difficult situations. Developing a compassion center at a school, really being able to keep a lot of plates spinning and handle that. So we're sort of looking for a therapist who has great clinical skills, but also has the ability to work within a larger system.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Additional questions, Ms. Munoz?
No, I'm very familiar with CALM, having been an intern there when I was getting my master's degree, and then also, very familiar. I've made many referrals to your agency, and just see the value of the support and the counseling that you provide. I think it's great to have that, the open classroom and the communication and support of the teachers also.
So it's good I remember you were sitting back there and it was late at night and we were trying to bring this to the forefront, and we were looking at how we're going to pay for it, where we're going to get the community support, how are we going to make sure that it's evaluated. And so all of that is right here tonight. So this again is a testament to your work and certainly the community support, because we said this has to be a community program. And so appreciate, the community stepping up with regards to that. And I certainly understand and work closely hand in hand with CALM through First Five. And so I appreciate the preschool aspect of it, knowing that we really have to get and talk to, and support our kids really early so that when they get to this point, they're much stronger and much more resilient. So I urge us to continue to do that, and we'll figure out a way how to get to that next budget level. Can't believe I'm saying that, but in a way that calmly I'm saying that, but firmly believe, because it is because of the why, and when you get to see the fruit, when you get to see the fruits of all the labor that's come right here, right now, so early in the program, with regards to that, because I remember those meetings we were wondering and where the community was going to get behind us, and obviously they did, and so I look forward to continuing this on, and it just feels good just to know that our children and our students are getting the help that they need. So thank you. Any additional comments?
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I just want to say that it's really been an honor to co-create this, and I want to give a shout out to Fran, Dr. Wagenknecht, but it's Fran because we work together, we text each other, we call each other, and it was pretty scary, I would say, a year ago or a little over a year ago. It was pretty bold, and I just want to thank the district for jumping in. It was uncharted territory. But I'm so proud of what we created together. I'm so proud of the staff at CALM that implemented this, because it was all new. And as a parent, just working on the systems level, it's mental health services, but done in a very different way. And the fact that we're integrating school by school, classroom by classroom, and keeping the child always as the North Star, to borrow a phrase that Jen uses, but really investing in the teachers so that they feel equipped, not only in this particular school year, but for school years to come, to handle children that have trauma backgrounds and being able to help families for the rest of their careers and providing them the support so that hopefully over time their stress levels go down. But CALM can't be at its best if we don't have a good partner, and I think SBUSD has been a tremendous partner, and it's just been really wonderful working collaboratively to create what has really been such a successful effort. And if you don't know, every single school district on the Central Coast has reached out to CALM to replicate this program. So we're working on that. We're expanding into Goleta this coming school year, as well as Orchid. We'd like to move into Guadalupe. We'd like to move into Carp. We'd like to move into Lompoc. They've all reached out because the word got out mid-year. I think there was a presentation. And so we're trying to figure out how we can scale this. But just know that your district was on the cutting edge, and we're so proud to have partnered with your 9 elementary schools. And I just see this as a shifting policy approach for our community. So it's very exciting.
Okay, thank you very much.
I do have one last comment that I should have put in my slide deck, and that is that, so we'll be bringing the MOU to the board for 2019-20, August 13th. So just things to come.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're moving to our last discussion item, multi-tiered system support, a vision for the whole child, Mr. Matsuoka and Dr. Wagenknecht.
I'll do about the first half, and then Dr. Wagenknecht will do the second half. We'll keep this short. It is intended to be a high-level overview. It really does connect with the report that you just heard. So there's a narrative, which really provides most of the detail. Here's some really important statements, and I won't read them at you. I'll just let you scan them. In our business, frameworks are really important because these are complex systems, and there's no simple solution to almost any problem. And I love the last bullet. It's real-time support, and we don't wait for somebody to fail. Sometimes we wait so long that the needs become so glaring. And I'll tell you where that happens the most. It's in special education and alternative high school programs. I mean, it frustrates me that we wait for a high school kid to almost like crash and burn in a regular high school setting, and then we figure out how to help them with an alternative setting. And so this is really meant to be a dynamic system. And so we wanted to find the right diagrams because we're actually devising communication strategies for our entire workforce. And this is a really good diagram. It's pretty simple, but it's really powerful. And I love that in the middle is whole child. I mean, whole child thinking has been around for a long time, but to implement it is challenging. And I love this diagram because kids are not just brains, they're hearts, they're souls. They experience emotions, they have lives, they have complicated lives. And here's what we recognize as your leaders, that this industry has been very focused on the upper left circle, the academic development of kids. What is emerging, my observation across the country, and it's been slow and steady, but now I think it's getting a lot of press, is a multi-tiered system of support for kids. It's called different things. You will see social emotional learning conferences. There's conferences about managing student behavior, but we are headed towards this model. And here's what we know is coming. Like our teachers who, let's say you're a 30 to 35 year veteran, your view of yourself may be, I teach content, I teach academics, that's my job. And when the behavioral challenges come, or the discipline things come, you know, let's face it, some of our teachers would rather somebody else deal with that. And what we're going to encourage our staff to do is become more of a holistic educator. Not overnight, because their plates are full. I mean, Common Core and everything is a lot of work. So this diagram Dr. Wagenknecht built. And so it's part of MTSS models, or tiers of support. And so she built this diagram, and there's something important about this. I would say for a long time, maybe 10 years or more, we have focused on the left side of that diagram. And Fran likes to put tier 1 at the bottom. A lot of diagrams are oriented this way. You'll see another one in a bit that's flipped. Regardless, tier 1 should be what we do for all kids. I mean, academic instruction, quality instruction. And I would say Dr. Ramirez has been relentless on that tier for his 5 years. And we still have a long ways to go. Now, tier 2 is called interventions in most people's languages. And then tier 3 is mostly what we would call special education services. Okay, so there's your academic side. Well, what's starting to emerge in the field and in diagrams is there's a whole behavioral tier 1, 2, and 3 model. And so there are tier 1 things that we should provide for all students. And that's mostly a classroom teacher. Tier 2 are going to be interventions. Tier 3 is intense interventions. I would say what you just heard about CALM is probably, I'm going to watch Fran as I say this, a tier 2 and 3 layer. Would you agree?
Yes, but however, by capacitizing teachers and other staff members, then you move that work into tier 1.
Yeah. So the goal is to move the work down, but we're always going to need, you know, some really qualified therapeutic experts to deal with tier 2 and 3 because, you know, teachers are trained to teach, but they're also with their kids every day, especially our elementary teachers who have their kids for the whole day. All right, I'm going to now pass this over to Fran, and she's going to share an example that we got to listen to this spring, and it's from Harding. Now, this diagram is flipped from what you just saw, but this is a living example of both parallel structures in place at Harding.
So Harding Elementary, under Veronica Binkley's leadership, has really been one of Harding and then also Franklin really pushing MTSS models. And so they have both sides. If you look on the left side, you have the academic. And so tier one, what do all students at Harding receive? They have their daily literacy block. And in there it talks about the guided reading, the blended learning, the closed and analytic reading, and the independent reading and writing. It calls out specifically what every single student at Harding receives. And then you move into the tier three, and that's where the curriculum specialists come in, and they work with students 2, 3, and 5 days a week for 30 minutes. And then finally into tier three, and that's 4 to 5 days a week, 45 minutes per session. And the thing that's important about this, and if Veronica was here, she'd really give you a show talking about this. It's really great work. But they have an early warning system where they look at the data for every single student in that school, and they decide who's flowing back and forth between the tiers. So a student who moves into tier 2 or tier 3, the goal is not to land them there forever, but rather to move all students, as many as possible, back into tier 1 if they receive interventions. So then on the other side, we have the behavioral side. So you can talk about it as being, MTSS, it's the A side, academic, and the B side, the behavioral. Behavioral performance inconsistencies, emotional regulation and difficulties, social skills deficits, and then executive functioning. And they talk about what all students in the schools receive. And same thing on tier 2 and then tier 3. And so they have these happening simultaneously. Some students are receiving, maybe they're in tier 3 for behavioral, but they're in tier 1 for the academic. It really is a robust system where each student gets exactly what they need in terms of the interventions. So how do we are launching this year what we're calling the Universal Supports for Learning, because the B side, the behavioral side, really, as the way I see it, provides the conditions for learning. It's like the soil. I'll channel Ms. Scharfeld and talk about the soil. It's the conditions for learning. And so the academic child cannot thrive if the behavioral side is struggling. And so, many years ago, it is many years ago now, it's probably seven or 8 years ago, we started looking at restorative approaches. And it's been a struggle. We've had pockets where that has worked, and I think I'm glad that we launched that. But what we're seeing is we really missed some key pieces of that. One, key pieces of what needs to be done along with restorative approaches. One being positive behavioral interventions and supports, wherein students and adults understand what the expectations are for behavior. What a concept. We actually have to be taught what the expectations are for how we act in school. And then also social emotional learning. And so we're talking about this braided initiative of braiding them together to make a robust behavioral set of interventions that will provide the conditions for learning for academic success. So that was a lot, but that's the 30,000-foot view.
Questions or comments?
Ms. Ford?
Thanks so much. I'm wondering where you are in the rollout.
Where are we in the rollout? So on the behavioral side, the braided initiative, which we're calling the Universal Support for Learning, we are launching now, in August. And we're actually going to focus in 2 areas. The first is we're focusing on adult social emotional learning. We're going to take care of our staff. We're going to make sure that adults can access their own social emotional development, that they understand it really well. And we want to make sure that adults don't see social emotional learning, positive behavior intervention as one more thing they have to do, but rather understand the why of it really well before we go into the what. So we do have a 5-year initiative plan, and we'll be bringing that to you to show you that. But I do want to say that a piece of the social emotional learning for adults that we're doing is addresses that issue of the elevated levels of stress and feelings of lack of competence amongst our teachers that we saw through the evaluation, and that is to provide opportunities free of charge, a menu of services of self-care. So we have a whole program, everything from Tai Chi and hiking and yoga and so forth, so that all of our staff members, not just teachers, have an opportunity to take care of themselves so that they can take care of our students. So that's the beginning. In terms of MTSS overall, we're saying that we're in year 0 this year, and we're starting with our leaders. John Shetler and I are going to the state conference next week on MTSS. So we're in year 0 on the overall launch.
I think it's fantastic. You know, it's been around a couple of years, and I'm really happy to see us doing this. And to your point, Mr. Matsuoka, Tier 1 is really all the students and actually all the staff, and on the state framework, it actually says, sort of the motto is, all means all. All means all. Everyone gets this. And so I'd like to just put in a plug for community circles in Tier 1, yoga in Tier 1, and meditation. Schools are seeing tremendous gains with kids on the behavior side with those 3 things.
Additional comments or questions? Dr. Reed?
Just to acknowledge Harding Elementary. So I guess they are on the cutting edge of 0. I mean, so how long have they been interacting and doing this?
3 years?
Dr. Ramirez?
3 years, more or less, that they've been building it. They did actually, as a school, at the same time that we received a cottage grant for school-based mental health in secondary, they received one for their school alone. And so they have a school psychologist who coordinates their MTSS services. And so if you have an opportunity to talk with Ms. Binkley, I know she is more than happy to tell you everything that's going on with that. But yeah, I think they're heading into maybe year 4.
I appreciate the practical, charting and showing exactly what it looks like in the movement back and forth. And it seems like that is, she's such a great resource in what they're doing for best practices for all the schools. So I'm sure you're going to be utilizing her for that. So thank you.
Comment about Harding, when we report test scores, you're going to see some really nice results coming out for Harding. And then the other really almost parallel data point is their kindergarten enrollment is hitting 72 kids. So I've heard stories about the historical battle for enrollment at Harding. Families are coming back. I mean, they're going to have 3 classes of kindergartners for the first time in probably decades. So it's a really good, there's good things happening on the west side.
Additional questions or comments? Okay. We conclude that. Well, we have made it almost to the end. Hanging in there, Laura? I know you told us by 10 you'd be ready to go. So any coming events we want to acknowledge? Any board members, any coming events that are coming? Okay. Future agenda items. I know we still have a couple items that we'll be working on the agenda, Ms. Ford, with regards to GATE. that is still there, so we'll look at that. And I think, Ms. Capps, you also raised an agenda item with regards to cannabis. We'll get a little bit more information as to what it is that you want us to, how you want us to reframe that on there, so.
Sure, I can make a suggestion, not now, but.
Yeah, so as we make the agenda, so. Are there additional items? Okay, Ms. Capps?
Yeah, just responding to the public comment about Roundup. It doesn't necessarily have to be a agenda item, but I would love to understand more. This has come up a few times, and I've been meaning to ask myself, so I was appreciative that this, that the community was here to talk about it.
You will see that on the board. We're going to take it off our list, and it'll come to the board next time.
Wonderful. Thanks.
I actually had met with all those students as cause in the community. That was one of the questions. They had many questions that night, but that was one of the questions. So we're urging them, as they're looking to be advocates in the community, how do they do that? And so urging them to come to the meetings and ask the questions, and also directing them to our website and who's handling that. So it was good to see them come tonight.
So
Yes, Dr. Reed.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think that bringing that forward, and if you were instigating that, Madam President, I wanted to appreciate that. And I also wanted to appreciate the fact of the work I know Brian has been helping to create the whole, how we set up a system.
Yes.
Relational to getting our agendas, you know, targeting the work
Yes.
in a very, you know, efficient way.
Right.
So I want to thank you both for doing that.
I just kind of said, hey, Brian, I need you to do this. And he said, yes. So thank you. So, all right. So it looks like any additional? Ms. Ford?
We've had lots of comments, questions, concerns raised about sex education by the community. I'd love to request a report from staff about what is the state requirement and what we actually do.
Okay, so noted. All right, and our next meeting, get us another little break there. Tuesday, August 13th, here, you know. And so, hearing no objections, Ms. Capps already got her purse ready to go. We're going to conclude this meeting. Thank you so much and welcome back. And thank you again, staff and cabinet, for doing all you do. Thank you.